Ladies and gentlemen, this is PJ Cavaya, the voice of State Wars Hockey, and you are watching the SWH podcast brought to you by Glass Half Full Productions. Thank you to all of our amazing sponsors, Mission Bauer, Tour, Alkali, Labrada, Rink Rat, Conix, Warrior, Monkey Sports, Yord Watches, Car Shield, Rocket Puck, Wraparound, and Top Shelf Targets. We look forward to seeing you all on the rink soon.
Well, here we are, State Wars Hockey Podcast number 16. I'm Tim McManus, once again joined by Greg Thompson on a beautiful Thursday, well, actually a little cloudy today, afternoon in Long Island, New York. How's it going today, GT?
Yeah. It's a little cloudy today, but we've been kind of spoiled the last couple of days. You know, it was really nice, but we're expected to have some rain in the forecast. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this pod today. You know, two great guys. Obviously, Rob has been on before, but I know he wants to get back on and talk a little PAMA Pro and maybe answer some questions that Jay Muro might have had. So that should be cool. And our boy Tetley Travis. You know, we've gone. You know, we've known him since he was a little lad coming from Connecticut, taking the ferry over to Long Island in the early sniper days. So it should be cool to catch up with him and, go over his career and his life in hockey, not just roller, but ice as well.
Yeah, for sure. You know, two great guests. I always love having Rob on. Tried getting Rob on last night, went back and forth. He was trying out a new laptop and just couldn't get the audio to work on it. So hopefully we'll have no problems with him today, but always great time talking to Rob. And, I want to talk PAMA Pro. It was fun having Jason on last week, going over some new ideas about PAMA Pro and just getting a feel for it. Someone had mentioned to me the other day, why don't you get, a bunch of you guys on together and just go around the table about PAMA Pro. And, the problem with it is, with this format with the Zoom, it's just easier to talk this way, one-on-one. If you get me, Jay Muro, and Joe Cook on a Zoom together, you got three guys that don't shut the hell up all on one Zoom. It'll be impossible. So, this way is just easier. We'll talk to Rob. We talk to Jay. I'll probably get Joe Cook on maybe next week again and just, talk to the coaches one-on-one about, possible rule changes, the division, the outlook of this year's division, who they like, who they don't like, and, answer some real questions. And, I liked that last week with Jay. Not that it got controversial anyway, but it was just good hearing different sides of stuff. And, I want to get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes a little bit. Gets a little dumb after a while when everyone's just, everyone's rainbows and unicorns all the time about how great everyone is. So it's good to get into some topics a little bit that could maybe be have a little bit of a, not say controversy, but conversation about.
Yeah, I agree there. And, obviously, on our sniper group chat, a couple of the guys want to come on and kind of stir it up a little bit, stir the pot up and get people talking and stuff like that. So maybe one of these days we'll get some different pro guys on each team, just kind of, talking about their team and, the future of the sport and the PAMA Pro Invitational. So
yeah, for sure. And then obviously, you brought up, Bags, Travis Bokina. We say about our sniper team, we've been doing this so long, the snipers are a family. Yep. And, when I think of Travis, I definitely think of family. He's someone, knows my kids, knows my wife well. My parents know him, he's like that little brother. But he's been around forever and, he's had a pretty awesome career in the sport. And he's one of those guys too, that might not be a household name to some, but for that period of time from when he was in the game, like really in the game, in my opinion, he was one of the best natural goal scorers around. So it's definitely gonna be fun talking to him about his love of the game and where he's come from and whatnot. Let's do a couple of birthday shout outs.
He'll tell you that too, Tim.
Oh, what's that?
He'll make sure to tell you that as well.
Oh yeah,
he's a natural.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about some birthday shout outs today. So today's birthday, happy birthday to Jared Holst out in North Carolina, one of our buddies out there. We got Tim Tobin from Pennsylvania, not the West Coast Tim Tobin, the East Coast Tim Tobin. It's his birthday today. I know Tim brings a 35 and over and men's team to Winter Wars every year. Happy birthday to him. David Cannon, Bones, as we like to call him, one of our officials, the People's Ref. His birthday today out in Illinois. I hope he's having a great quarantine birthday today. And Jack Grossman, longtime player of Team Pennsylvania. what was he, a 93, Greg? Was he a 93?
I think he's a 90 grossman.
90, that's right,
Yep.
90. So I know he played with Black Ice for a while too. When Jay started grabbing guys outside of New York, he was one of the first ones to come along with that 90 group. For Jay, great player back in the day. I know it's his birthday, and I actually see an old parent of one of our players, Chris Smith.
Yeah.
One of our old 96 players, Cameron. His dad today, it's his birthday. And just yesterday, Tommy Prate, longtime sniper, stud player back in the day. And tomorrow, I might as well go into tomorrow as well. I see Tony Hidrick from, I think he's from Missouri. And Iggy Goodman, an old-time player, coach from BC, his birthday. And then we got over the weekend, Laura from California, Team USA, arguably the best female player out in California right now. It's her birthday over the weekend. Matt Noga, another Illinois men's player, buddy of Pete Messina's. And
Aaron Leishman from Aaron Leishman has a birthday this Saturday as well. Aaron Leishman from Alberta, and our boy, your neighbor, Pat.
Pat Line.
Yeah, Pat's birthday is this weekend as well. So, and I can't forget about my boy from Missouri, Chad Larkowski. His birthday? Chad Larkowski this Saturday as well.
Oh wow! Okay, happy birthday to Larko there. So a lot of birthdays, big birthday weekend, a lot of parades going down, a lot of car parades going down blocks this weekend. I have a feeling. Yeah,
I would say so. We actually have one tomorrow for Amy's nephew, so that should be fun. I don't know if I told you last parade we did. Amy set up the car, put all the posters and all the nonsense on the car, and I'm like, "You sure you don't want to do that when we get a little closer?" She goes, "No, we'll be fine." I look back, driving down the highway and Montauk Highway. Obviously it's not a crazy road, but it gets a little windy, and all of a sudden all the decorations flew off the car before we got there. So I think this time we'll do it a little different.
It's funny. That makes me think of a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember this story, but I was running a soccer practice with my youngest, who was probably, I guess she had to be kindergarten. So it was a year ago. So in kindergarten, soccer practice. And I remember seeing a drill that a coach had done for another soccer team that she played with that I thought was pretty cool for the little kids. And what he had done was he took cones, or really like discs they use in soccer, and he had tied a balloon on a string to each disc. And he had about 8 of them all around. And, it's windy outside, obviously. So he'd make the kids dribble through, and you had to also try to avoid the balloons as they were bumping into the kids or whatnot to get around them, whatever. I thought it was a pretty cool little thing. It was fun for the girls. They loved it. Yeah. So I was like, I'm stealing that. So I actually texted the guy. I'm like, hey, just giving you props. I'm stealing that balloon drill you did for the girls. So I went to the party store here in town. And I don't know if you remember this, Greg.
Yeah, I do.
I went out and bought 12 pink balloons because I had to get one for every girl on the team, because my wife's like, at the end of the practice, you got to give one to each girl. So I got one for everybody. And I home and I tied them all. We had the same exact size string. We tied them all to the discs. And then I threw them all in my back of my car, my truck. And then we drove to the field. And when I got to the field, all the balloons had intertwined with each other, and the string and whatnot of all these balloons, I take them out and I'm thinking, all right, just throw it down. They're all going to unravel. Well, that didn't work out. So it was impossible. It was like doing a Rubik's Cube to get these balloon things untied. So I couldn't do it. So I had to cut them all off, just give them to the girls, ruin the whole drill. My 6-year-old basically was telling me I wasn't as good as her other coach. And, but it was fun. But it just made me think of that when you talked about the decorations.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember you had it all set up. You're all pumped for it, and couldn't use it. Couldn't use the drill. That's pretty hysterical.
Speaking of those parades for the cars, I think it was yesterday, the day before, my 10-year-old, she had a parade thing for her birthday. So my wife's like, hey, we have so-and-so's birthday parade today. We got to go. And I hadn't even heard of the kid before. And I was like, whose party is that? She's like, oh, kid in her school. And Casey's basically telling us, like, I don't even know that person. Like, why do I have to go in this parade? I don't even know them, So it's like you're going in these parades for birthdays of kids you don't even talk to or whatever. It's just funny. So you would never would have been invited to the party if they had a party. But
yeah, of course.
I'm hoping in January when it's my birthday, A, this quarantine is over, and B, if it's not, do not drive by my house for it. I do not want a parade for my birthday. Do you want one in August, Greg?
No. Hopefully we'll be at a summer event during mine. So doing something hockey related. Yeah, definitely keep away from the parades. That's for sure. I don't want one.
Speaking of this summer, everyone keeps asking, and obviously, I try to be as honest and transparent as possible what's going on this summer, because there's no reason not to. So, giving everyone an update where we're at. I had sent out an email last week that we were talking about maybe moving the tournament to Fort Wayne, Indiana, because Michigan just has been not moving in any direction to get the rink open, and Indiana's moving quite fast and getting things opened up. So we had been told in Indiana that, by June 1st, the rink was opening, and by July 4th, the entire state was opening. Restaurants, bars, malls, pools, amusement parks, sports, everything, 100% capacity. So that's great news. So we started moving forward with Fort Wayne, and what's happened there is, the people that we're dealing with, they want to make sure we have all our I's dotted and T's crossed with the state, and make sure there's no issues. Because the last thing we want is if everyone come into State Wars and we don't get the proper approvals, and then we get like shut down mid-tournament. Everyone's just sitting there like, oh damn, what are we gonna do now? Yeah. So I know it takes longer doing it this way, and I don't know if anyone that runs tournaments would go through these hurdles that we're doing to make sure it's done right, but we're doing it the right way. So we have stuff up at the governor's office to get approvals from state officials and health officials, and of course that's a slow process. Yeah. So we just don't have final answers yet, and it may not be until middle of June possibly. We don't know for sure. We're being told, because that's when the next phase, the fourth phase, would start, and then our phase is phase 5 in July. So they're still, it's still in their world. Things are changing every week in this whole damn thing. So I know in New York, I feel like in the last 2 weeks a lot has changed. So yeah, I still feel confident that we'll be in Fort Wayne this summer, but unfortunately, it's not going to be something that we're going to know 3 months in advance. It may be something where, and I'm working on this now, where maybe we could plan on it and know and tell people that, hey, you could plan on it. We could get hotels booked. Hotels know that they will have to maybe not take deposits right now, and maybe not book your flights yet, and wait till that June date to know that, all right, we got the final green light on this. Yeah. But it's just too early to get 100%. So we have to just slowly go through the processes. But again, we're doing this for everyone's safety and whatnot. And again, I don't know what anyone else in the hockey or other tournaments and other sports are doing, but we're just going through all the proper channels to make sure it's done right. So just bear with us. Trust me, no one wants to have the answer more than the two guys on the screen right now. So, we will get it done one way or the other, but it's just a little bit slower of a process than we'd hoped. And, maybe we'll move, I don't know if we move our dates back a little bit into August to give us more time to plan. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So it's just all up in the air right now. And hopefully by the end of this month, we'll have more answers. So that's just the honest, transparent answer to what's going on right now.
Yeah, like you said, we've been getting numerous emails and calls, from teams all over the country and even Canada, still interested in coming. So I definitely think it's going to be a kick-ass event, when we do announce all the changes and the dates and stuff like that. Obviously everyone's got to be a little patient, and if we find out in the next 2 weeks, it's still 6 weeks out, so people have plenty of time to book flights and hotels and all that stuff. So just be patient with us, and we'll get the answer out with all your questions immediately as soon as we find out. So we're not keeping people in the dark. We don't really know anything right now. So.
And you brought up a good point. I mean, the truth is, we're hearing from teams every day, youth and adult. We're hearing from California youth teams, Florida youth teams, everyone in between, Colorado, Texas, Ontario, Alberta. Like, we're hearing from everyone. Like I said last week, I don't expect to have international teams, just North American teams. But we're hearing from teams from all over, which is great. So, it will be a kick-ass tournament as long as we get the go-ahead to have it. As far as the dates go, I know Stephanie Gibbons just put on our chat here, about the dates. Again, the plan of the dates right now, we're July 24th to August 2nd. We had crunched it to a 10-day block, and we may change the block dates per division slightly on that. But that may slide back to maybe start on the 31st if they ask us to. So until I get the information from the rink, that's when we'll know for sure. And I just don't want to give out false information. So
and again, have to change it 100 times,
like one of these politicians up here just talking out of both sides of my mouth. I want to be totally honest with everyone and say that's just where we're at. And again, no one wants this tournament to happen more than the two guys on the screen, except maybe my wife, because she wants me out of the house, getting tired of me being here all this time with them, and my kids probably. But, trust me, we're doing everything we can to make it a great tournament as always, but most importantly, a safe, fun, healthy one. So that's what we're working on right now.
Yep. Yeah, we don't want to, say something and have to change dates and locations and stuff like that 100 times before we get a final answer. So, yeah, I think we can move on.
It's an uncharted course, right? So I watched a great video last night from a soccer group. So here in Long Island, ECNL is a big soccer group. It's all East Coast, I guess, and pretty high level of soccer. And of course, they want to get things going too. And part of it is it's businesses for people. They want to get things going. But they had a doctor on, and they were talking about the health part of kids playing sports and how, talking about risks. And they said, there's always a risk. There's a risk to, break your neck when you play hockey. There's a risk with this virus, unfortunately, maybe very small, especially for kids. But there's always a risk. But they said, they're worried more about the other things that, mentally and physically of kids being away from sports, being away from their teams, being away from their friends for this extended period of time. And the longer it goes, there's a lot of other risks involved with other things, depression and, just a lot of bad stuff. So, that's why a lot of people are pushing for, let's get sports going a little bit here, that, there's a better chance of more kids getting hurt mentally and physically in other ways than just from this damn virus. So I think that's where things are kind of moving. And I'm happy to see, the NHL just announced, their new format to get that league going. And, the NBA has talked about some stuff. And so you're starting to see sports starting doing stuff. So
yeah, it's
a trickle down effect, right? I know the baseball players are a little softer than other sports. I heard that they're being all wimpy about getting back at it and stuff. But I don't know. How I look at it is, I said this to you the other day in our group chat, that if the kid making $10 an hour at the grocery store can pack my bags and be around and put at risk, then I guess the all-star athlete making $10 million a year can get up and stay in his 5-star hotel and be protected every second and go swing a baseball bat for a little bit.
Yeah, can't say disagree with you there. I'm looking forward to getting out and living a normal life. We're trying to make it as normal as possible here. Still seeing family and stuff like that, but obviously we're being cautious about it. But we're still getting out and about and doing our thing. So just hopefully soon we could announce Indiana and finalize everything and get everything going again like normal. So
no, for sure. All right, so now we got Rob Chornomud, Mr. Labrada himself in the waiting room here. So I'm going to get Rob on. Hopefully his audio is working well, and let's bring him on and talk shop with one of the best in the business.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is PJ Cavalla, the voice of State Wars Hockey, and you are watching the SWH podcast brought to you by Glass Half Full Productions. See you at the rink soon.
We're back here, State Wars Hockey Podcast, with from Elsinore, California, Lake Elsinore, Rob Chornomud. Rob, is your audio working today?
You tell me, is it working?
There we go.
All right.
We're all good,
Right.
Robbie.
Hey, technology, baby, technology.
What's shaking over there in Labrada headquarters?
You know what? We're keeping busy. Things have been obviously with everything going down. Everybody's skating outdoors, finding new ways to make hockey happen. So the nice part about what's gone down is, we've opened up probably a lot of ice hockey players, on getting on wheels in the world that they would never have, the perfect storm in regards to you can't get on ice anywhere. So what's the next best option? So it looks like we might have some new converts here in the next few years.
Now, Rob
That's
had mentioned to me last week, Greg, that they had basically a 3-year supply in stock in the warehouse of outdoor wheels, and basically in like 6 weeks they were sold out. Is that correct, Rob?
Not correct. What it is was we had about a 6-month stock of wheels, and we've had to replenish 3 years worth of stock, and we're still out of wheels. So we've gone through 3 years worth of inventory, not because we had it in stock, but we had to produce it to ultimately, get everyone as close to taking care of as possible. But we still have a ton on back order. We're still producing daily, and the good part about it is it's a good problem to have, but definitely, no one expected to see something like this come down the pipe.
Now, Rob, one of the things that drives me nuts during this whole quarantine, and I hear this from a lot of business guys, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this at all, and I'm going to go on a rant about this if you have, but people begin on unemployment, and then things get going a little bit, and not wanting to come back to work and stuff like that. Have you seen any of that with your guys out there, like the factory guys and the wheel guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with it personally. I mean, it was a situation where when this went down originally, we had no understanding of what was going to happen. So, we were gearing up for the worst and expecting that, are we going to be open for another month, 2 weeks, a week, but before there's a complete shutdown, being a family business, we figured we'd be able to trim down to a skeleton crew, produce what we had to ourselves if we had to, and get through whatever we had to. Even if we're, in a forced shutdown, we're still dealing with family members that, can still operate the business without having to, take on the liability of bringing in, workers that aren't, family to produce. So when this went down, we skeleton crewed, but then at the same time, we kind of found out in the interim that we were a leg of an essential business. So we validated ourselves as an essential business through that. And because of that, we were able to bring our workforce back. But because of the laws and what they were throwing in regards to the stimulus packages for unemployment, everybody that went home didn't want to come back because they're making more money sitting at home than they would be back at at work here. So we had to bring in a whole new staff and gear up and do what we had to do, by bringing in new people who are, hungry to work.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
That drives me nuts with this whole thing. I definitely, and again, this is, not being a Monday morning quarterback because it was unprecedented times for everyone. But in retrospect, I don't think anyone should have been paid more on unemployment than they got paid in their regular jobs. Because you had to think this could happen to a lot of, especially lazy Americans. And I'm sure a lot of people, whether they're afraid of the virus or not, will say they are as a reason not wanting to come back to make it feel better about themselves, rather than getting back to work. And then they're just taking money away from maybe businesses that could have had that money for other reasons and whatnot. So definitely frustrating to see. But I guess for you guys, you just got to get Scotty's kids, Kevin kids, maybe Jaden, want to get them on those machines and get them pouring some wheels and stuff.
Yeah, Jaden's been out there. We weren't messing around. We did bring the family crew in, and we were all, we've all been involved in some capacity here over the last 2.5 months, whether it be pouring, machining, because we were prepared for the worst. Right. Like I said, being a family business gave us a leg up on the average company out there because we had the resources to get through it if we had to.
I find that word essential real funny. Like, what does essential mean? Because to me, what's not essential? Like, to me, if it's your business, it's essential. If it's your family's business, it's essential. And to someone that's into that, it could be a cigar shop. If you're love smoking cigars 7 days a week, that cigar shop's pretty essential to your life. So to me, I don't really like that term essential and non-essential because I think they really got it wrong with that. Because in my world, State Wars hockey is essential.
I think you're spot on, and I think that's a big issue. Was I don't promote the word essential, but obviously they were forcing shutdowns. Your government's getting involved in dictating which business is allowed to be open and not open. And like I said, we were prepared to shut down as well. It's a situation where people were coming in to close you up, like, whether it be a county official, so we were prepared that the worst was going to happen. Somebody was going to walk in and just tell us, you're not allowed to do this. You have to shut down. So we were fortunate enough that we supplied a couple of wheels to companies that validated were essential businesses. And as a vendor to them, we were an extended arm of an essential business. So like I said, it's a gray area, but as far as I was concerned, it allowed us to stay open and we kept on, rocking and rolling.
That's awesome. Did you fly in Cody for the last couple of weeks or what?
No, I think he was able to get through on that essential business too, because he's a chemist, so he's involved in that world. Yeah.
It's funny. I was, I always see these guys skating with those green biscuit pucks, and I finally got my hands on one the other day, just skating with a buddy, Coach D. And I went on the website today. They're all sold out. I think they were asking for $14 a puck. And I think the other, like the NHL ones, are $18 or $17 a puck. So those guys are making out pretty well with the pucks right now. Crazy.
No, for sure. And like I said, it's put everybody in an environment where they've had to look at doing stuff they would not have normally have done,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Green Biscuit, everybody who's got a opportunity to have something that can skate outdoors, do something outdoors,
Yeah.
capitalize on it.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, it's impossible. I heard now, like out here, people have been trying to buy pools, any kind of pool to get. They can't get them, like even a above ground pool or a kiddie pool, anything. You can't get them. Bicycles. My one buddy owns a bicycle shop. And if you remember back in the day, the Valley Stream Bike Store, that hockey shop. So they've been killing it during this. I mean, he sends me memes every day of money just flying out the window. He's making so much money on bikes right now. So all those outdoor type things, especially, by you guys, people more into that outdoorsy type of lifestyle. Out here, it's not as big of a thing. So now people are just looking for stuff to do outside constantly because it's starting to warm up out here.
Well, it's good. Hopefully people carry and use this, continue to use this, once this is all over. So these bikes and these skateboards and all this stuff doesn't get stuck in the garage or in some dark corner of the house and never gets used again. So.
So let's talk about something real essential to all of us here, and that's the PAMA Pro Invitational. So, we obviously we talk about all the time, not to always talk about pro, but it is the highest end of the sport. It's that top of the triangle, if you would, that point. And it's a point that everyone wants to get to. It's the most attractive thing in the sport. At our tournament, it's the part everyone's always talking about and whatnot. And obviously Rob, coaching one of the premier teams in the division. We had Jason Muro on last week to get some talks going about the PAMA Pro upcoming. And he gave his opinions and whatnot. And I want to jump in with you now here. And, before we talk about maybe some of Jason's comments, let's just talk about the game itself. We had talked a little bit about last week about everyone's always throwing out a rule change and we should do this, we should do that, change the game this way, that way, smaller rinks, smaller nets, offsides, everything you could think of. Opinions are like assholes, as we know. So in your world, Rob, and I value your opinion as much as anyone's because you've been around since the beginning. You were back in the Fred Flintstone days of the sport. So you've seen it all happening. What do you think? Where the game is at right now, do you think it needs to be changed at all? And if so, suggestions you might have for that?
Well, what's funny is the small nets is where we started. I mean, USARS, which is USAC, AAU, the first year in Narch, maybe even the first 2 years, but definitely the first year in Narch was on small nets. People didn't know that back then, but I'm definitely not. I don't think small nets are the way to go. Definitely for us, because we're dealing with availability. Where do you get the small nets? If you're not practicing on them year round, it doesn't give you an advantage. To set it up and do it for the summer. But I think the game the way it is right now, I think is awesome. I think a lot of tweaks you guys have done with penalty times. Extending games for the pro game, maximizes, the joy of the game and watching it, being able to make it more exciting. And the only other thing that comes to mind, I was just going to say something, and I think it just slipped my mind, was I was thinking faster than I was talking there. So
we'll come back to you.
But I mean, I think the way the game is right now, it's fun to watch. Oh yeah, it's goals. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a purist who want to see that tough defensive battle, but people want to watch goals being scored. The nicer the goals, the more exciting it is to watch. You're playing on small nets. You're limited to what's happening in that world, goal scoring wise. You're you're evening the playing field a little bit more. But I think the nets the way we have them, the game the way it's played right now, it's fast. It's allowing the skilled players to shine. It's allowing the game to be played without a lot of issues to break up the creativity of the game.
Yeah, when I started playing in nationals in '93 at USARS, and the first one was in New Jersey first, or Pennsylvania. They had the small nets, obviously, and that was the first time we ever played with them. And funny story about that tournament, an old buddy of yours and mine, Eric Weisselbaumer, he was on our team. I remember we went the first year to nationals, and the first nets they had out there were made out of wood. And we get there, and Eric, and he rips one off the crossbar first game, and the net just explodes into like 1,000 pieces. So they wound up getting new nets during the tournament because of Eric. But what's funny about the small nets is, my understanding was, way back when people designed this sport, they wanted to be different than ice hockey. So they said, okay, how can this sport be different than ice hockey? So the first thing is there's no checking. That was one change they had to ice hockey. Then they made it 4-on-4 instead of 5-on-5. And then they made no offsides. And I think when you added those rules together, people just assume that, hey, this is going to be crazy with goals. It's going to be, if games that are 5-on-5 with regular size nets, guys can score 5 goals in a game. Imagine what the score is going to be like 4-on-4, no offsides. So what can we combat that? I think they went to smaller nets then as well to try to keep the game a certain way and a little different than ice. And, I played with them as you did. And, it's like anything else. At first it's weird. Then you get kind of used to it or whatnot. But when you see the game today, we see plenty of shutouts or 1-1 games or whatnot. So it's not really necessary. If every game was 15-14 in the PAMA Pro, I would say, hey, let's go small nets. And that's why we do that at State Wars in the 6-on the division and the 7-on the division, because the kids are so small and they score 1 million goals on these poor kids. But, Troy Redmond and Chinny and Dwyer and Leggett, they don't need any more help. Like, they're fine how they are. And so I don't think the nets would really change anything.
No, I agree. And I think it actually comes from the ball and cane world. I think those are the nets they use in ball and cane, which there's less goalie pads, less everything else. And they figured, well, inline hockey is a branch of that versus realizing it's more of a branch of ice hockey than it is of ball and cane, that, we don't need to share, equipment, from that world versus sharing it from the ice world.
You guys used to battle all the time. I remember Canada always had that goalie that was, 6'7" and 250 pounds stuffed in that little goal, and then it becomes almost impossible.
I think it was St. Pierre. I think it was. Yeah.
Yep, he was a big boy.
So
yeah, I remember back in the day playing at, obviously Ayers and, in the early days at Todd's rink. And I remember the one Nightmare goalie, Tim, New York City Nightmare, the big guy. He was always a monster in that net.
Yep.
He was older than me, but I always used to be like, wow, how is anyone ever going to score on that guy?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? Remember that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember his name, but yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, again, I don't mind the international side, the smaller net, smaller rink. It kind of makes the games a little closer for the countries. I think USA on a big rink, big net, and the tournament we were at last year, we would dominate more if the nets were full size in the rink. So that game makes it a little bit of a better game, and they're used to that overseas and stuff. But for our sport here, I don't think the rink size or the size of nets need to be changed at all. I know someone brought up a shot clock, Rob. I just, I don't know if you saw the one pod I just went on a rant about, just get better. To me, that's more what we're worried about, getting better at the game, not worried about changing the game.
Yeah, not to mention the refs have enough to worry about. They don't need to be counting down a shot clock or any of that stuff. When it's all said and done, like you said, the game's on par right now. You're watching the top, pro teams play. You can put that on TV and watch that all day long.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's talk a little bit about, teams in the pro division. So, obviously, we're still in this mode right now where we're hoping we're going to be playing this summer, but let's assume for now, of course, that we will be in State Wars playing this summer. When you look at that PAMA Pro division, your team this year, you made, a huge addition. Ethan Chavera had come over, who, is arguably, a top 10 player in the sport. Came back to play where he started with the Cyclones, come back home to play with you guys. So you had to be pretty excited about your roster for this year, as I'm sure you always are, but this year more than ever. Is this a roster you're more excited about than you have been maybe in a long time?
I think so. I mean, it's one of those, you always go into it hoping that all the pieces come together. But this year especially, I feel the strongest in regards to balance from offensive, defensive, goaltending. Years in the past, last year we were missing a guy who got sick the night of his flight. He's on his way out, got sick, and we were short, a key piece, Darren Nowick.
Yeah.
And Taylor Aronson hasn't made the last few years, which, impacts, he's a stout defenseman that contributes offensively and just, a big D that you're missing on the floor. So you always hope to have the pieces, but, between ice hockey and just, life getting in the way, you never know what ends up happening. Goaltending, we've always been, ever since Troy left, we haven't found our goalie per se, and each year we're out there, trying a new guy, seeing how he fits. And, is he the guy that, can be our guy for years to come? But, I finally feel that we have everything, at each position. Now it's just a matter of closing out, the games, the big games at the right time and getting through. But, yeah, I definitely feel like this is a strong year to want to make sure that it happens because, we're going into it, in my opinion, at least with our strongest team.
Now, I know Jason had mentioned last week that he felt that, not that he thought it was the wrong or right thing to do, but he just said on his end, he doesn't really change rosters at all. He felt you guys kind of change your rosters a lot. So some guys are being left out in the cold, maybe. I mean, do you agree with that assessment?
No, I mean, I heard that when I heard that at first, I'm thinking, who's he thinking of here? Like, I heard the comment because I was driving, listening to the podcast. And you mentioned, we've got the luxury of at least having a men's platinum team, almost like a farm team, but, below our pro team. So it allows us the capability of having players that are, if they're developing younger players that we can potentially pull from below. But at the same time, it also gives us the resource to allow guys to continue playing, maybe not at the pro division, but at the next best level, which is men's platinum or senior double A, so it gives us something that not every team has. And, when I was thinking about that, I know we always use our own guys first. The only time I'm ever reaching out, usually at a winter nationals, because not everyone's going, and we have, a lot of connections between, our other Labrada teams, whether it be the Snipers, Black Ice, guys that are, branded players that support us as well. It makes it easy to bring them in. And, so we're always filling holes because somebody can't make it because of work or whatever the situation is, but we fill holes accordingly. But, yeah, we're never turning our back on our own to bring in somebody else because it makes our team stronger. It's just because somebody can't make it. Or, another point, to that is, you don't have to make any changes yet. When you've, I've been doing this long enough that I've seen a couple cycles of those young teams become old teams, and, not everyone's starting and, at CJ's age at 19 years old playing pro, and all 15 guys are 45 years old still playing, that doesn't happen,
Right.
So
Definitely
you make adjustments. Yeah, you make adjustments. Life gets in the way. Guys get married. Guys have different jobs. They can't get away. But Black Ice is fortunate that they're in the sweet spot of their timeline. Their guys are at an age where they can still make it all happen. They're at an age where they're still going to be competitive for years to come, and they're good. But there's going to be a point where I'm friends with all my boys and everything too. Like, our relationships run deep, but, it is a business in the sense that you always want to put a team that can win. We're representing brands, whether it be Labrada, PAMA, Mission, whatever it is, you're representing a brand that, you've got a responsibility to them as well. So when it's all said and done, I'm always looking at putting our best team together based on our group. But, there's times when adjustments need to be made because guys' commitments aren't the same, and I'm going to give my guy every chance he can to be there. But if all of a sudden I realize the commitment ain't the same, he's not training like he should be, he's not seeing, the rink as often as he should be, then I'm going to make an adjustment and I can drop him down to a men's platinum team or an adjustment like that.
Yeah, I had mentioned that to Jason last week. I think that, when you win, it's different, right? And, and the PAMA Labrada Golden Knights in the PAMA Pro Invitational, it's a top division in the sport. And in 5 years, you guys haven't won that tournament yet. So I know that's got to eat at you a little bit, eat at your players, obviously eat at, Mike Nijar, who's, the owner of the team, and so obviously you want to get there. So you're going to have to make little adjustments to get to that next level if you feel like you're missing something. And I think anyone does. If they're, if you're winning, it's easy to say, hey, I'm not touching nothing. But when you haven't won, you want to get to that next point. And I think bringing in, obviously, like an Eton this year is obviously a huge addition to that team. And, I think, one thing I wanted to mention to you, Rob, was something I forgot to mention to Jay Muro the other day. The word pro to me, it gets thrown around very, very casually, I guess, and we're even guilty of it. We've had a tournament and I don't know, one of our weekend tournaments somewhere where we'll call something pro where, it's really like a men's platinum or whatnot. So the word pro gets thrown around a lot. And so does then, pro champions and whatnot. We want a pro division, and to me, in the grand scheme of things, when people are counting rings, and I know Roller Dad News did something one day and they were counting championship teams have had and whatnot. I wanted to get your opinion on this, and even Greg's maybe. I haven't talked to Greg about this, but to me right now in the game in 2020, the top 4 teams in the game, in no particular order, with everyone there, are PAMA Labrada Golden Knights, Alkali Rebel, Black Ice, and the Snipers. I would say pretty fairly with everyone there, those are probably the top 4 teams if you're putting odds on in Vegas to win the PAMA Pro Invitational. So to me, for something to be considered a pro and to count that pro title as I won that, 3 of those 4 teams have to be in that tournament. If you go somewhere and it's just one of us, if I go in and it's no one, if you guys aren't there and Alkali's there and Jay's not there, I don't know if I can really count that on my mantle as I won a pro division. So just want to see your thoughts on that. If you think the competition warrants what considers it a pro title or not.
Oh, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's loosely thrown. It's a situation where those are definitely the top 4 teams currently going into this tournament this year. There's another, probably 4 teams that are right, nip and tuck, biting on the heels. But I'd say the clear cut 4, you said it. But there's a lot to be said for, guys also showing up at a tournament and you definitely don't have your whole team. Those situations happen when I know, unless you're behind the bench and, you've got your full entourage of players, some guys are just getting to a tournament. So it's a warm up for the next one. So they want to make sure they're playing. And,
Right.
If you beat the Snipers in one tournament, but they didn't have, the top 3 players, you behind the bench, that you beat the Snipers, but you're not going in a State Wars going, okay, we beat them over here and we're going to take them out over here too. It's a whole different team. So I think it's looking at what the rosters look like, especially when Worlds impacts tournaments where you're missing players. Like I know Black Ice, our team, Snipers, Alkali as well are all impacted by, the World. So if that's going on concurrently with the tournament, it impacts, who's showing up for that team. You're still going to, guys might still want to play. So that team is there, but are they represented properly? Because you're missing a, Sigmund, a Travis a Spezia, like that impacts each team, considerably.
Yeah, it's tough, I don't know where you draw the line where you could say, oh, if 3 out of the 4 teams are there, or, because like you said, there's a lot of teams nipping at the butt, and they're right there too. So it's really tough for me, for sure. Obviously there's been some events, in the past where, there's only maybe 1 or 2 teams, out of that top, top tier, as you would say, that are at the event. So for me, it's like, I sit back at home and I'm like, oh God, like, these guys won. Obviously it's awesome. I'm happy for them. But at the same time, it's like, well, so-and-so wasn't here, so-and-so wasn't here. And there's a long list of teams and players. So it's tough for me, but I'm sure you guys will agree as well. State Wars, PAMA Pro, that's it. I think that's the top tier in the pro division, and all the top players are there. So that's a great tournament to base it on.
Yeah, no one's returning cups. Nobody's returning money and returning cups because they won a tournament that somebody didn't attend. So at the end of the day, championships are championships.
Yeah.
But if there's one that you want, that's the one. I mean, that everyone's coming with their team. There's no excuses. You're showing up, that you're playing the best at the best, tournament there is for, pro. So when you walk away with that cup, you went through battle and you came out on top.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Rob, following along with that, I mean, like we said, you've been coaching in the pro division since the beginning, and I started in 2003 was our first pro division, and you saw a lot of teams over the years. Back in the day, there was the Mission factory team. I remember the tuxedo jerseys in Cincinnati that they wore, and obviously Labrada Vikings teams, and the Tor Mudcats had teams, and Rink Rat had a team, and there were a lot of Hyper. There were always a lot of good teams and whatnot. How would you compare the sport today to then? Because I know there's always people that will self-promote how great their teams were. I mean, me personally, I look at it almost like the NHL, that you can't even compare the speed, the level of skill and whatnot going on in 2020 back in 20 years ago. But just want to get your thoughts on where the game is now compared to when you first got involved.
I mean, just like the NHL, you can't compare 2019 20 to 1999 98. I mean, you're not facing Bob Probert out there. You're not facing guys that you have to worry about taking you out and playing the game totally differently. I mean, I heard the man's man game. I mean, it was a whole different game because it was ref differently. It's what you saw back then, and I'm a full believer you didn't see those young, talented, fast kids teams coming up because they were scared for their lives to jump in there. So you saw that D1 junior age rise because the kids teams weren't jumping into the men's division because it was a whole different game. I mean, you're not prepping 16s 18s to play this way, so when they get up there, it's you're building your pro teams around you need size, guys that can skate, guys that can shoot, but these kids teams, you're pulling together the best talent that you can, so they're not necessarily the biggest kids, and they don't have to worry about getting killed in 16 and under, so it's a situation where you weren't seeing that those younger teams cross over. But once the rules opened up and the refereeing became a lot stricter to allow kids to be able to skate, play, the hooking got taken out of the game, hooking, slashing, allowed the game to open up. And over the years, technology, skates better, floors are better, everything improves. You're going to see people maximize getting the most out of the skill set of an individual, and now being able to put that on in the spotlight is awesome, because you're now getting the most of what you've developed over the last 25 years. I mean, that we were new to the sport in the 90s, so pro back then was a bunch of guys, ice hockey guys, playing ice hockey on wheels. They weren't playing the game we play today. The control aspect of the game wasn't there. It was you're playing run and gun hockey, two sides of the floor, who's going to survive the shootout, and the bloodbath, and that's who's the champion at the end, versus today, it's a whole different game. It's the control, it's the skill, it's the shooting. But, there's a handful of players that could have played today from back then, but there's definitely, the teams today are definitely more talented, faster, that they're able to showcase their skill set, which, if you were doing it back then, you were a hell of a player, so there's a few of those guys that were doing it back then. And when you're doing it back then, I mean, you knew you were a player.
Yeah, Greg, I mean, I remember our sniper team when we first started doing pro. I look back now at our roster, and we legitimately, Rob, probably had maybe 3 pro players on our roster, what I would consider pro players. And Greg was one of them. And Greg was a baby, and he was, 80 pounds soaking wet and just new to that level. And just, I don't want to say scared out there, but, when you're 18 and you got 26-year-old pro ice hockey players, threatening you and whacking the shit out of you, and the referees let it go, it's intimidating.
Oh, for sure.
But I just think back about it, that our team, we never won anything. But we were like in every game. We would lose by a goal or 2 late in the game because we just would never get a call, and, we would just lose. But we were in the games. And I look at our sniper team today compared to then, and I think our sniper team today would have beat our old sniper team, 15-0 if we played them. The skill level is just at a whole nother level. So when I just look at that, I just say today the game is just so much more skilled. And same thing when you go back, as a Ranger fan, you go back and watch the old 94 Ranger Stanley Cup run, and you watch the video and you feel like, shoot, I could have played the NHL then. Like, the guys are so
no, exactly.
there's guys on defense that could barely even skate, you know, and whatnot. And it's just a different game. But Greg, what about from you as a player now? So you grew up playing in that age when you were that young guy, you know, 17 or whatever, starting to play pro. And then, so you've seen the transition through. Where do you think the game is now, as now the older statesman watching it compared to when you first started?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, when we first started playing pro, I think that was kind of when the PAMA Cyclones started playing pro as well. I think we kind of started at the same time, and both rosters were pretty young. I remember Rob, their team, you know, they had some older guys as well, kind of mixed in. But we were pretty young. I mean, our oldest guy was, you know, 5 years older than me, so like 23 years old, you know, like Derek Kern. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, such a big difference. I still remember playing in the old tourist tournaments when they were full contact. I mean, it was crazy. And back then, it was just open ice. It was everything. And I'm like you said, you know, I was heavier than 80 pounds, Tim, uh, but it, you know, imagine a young Greg Thompson, you know, puny as could be, going into the corner with guys like St. Cyr and Jamie Yoder at the time, and tougher guys, you know, tough guys at the time, and full contact, no shoulder pads, no padding, nothing. And you know, for me, I always tried to play tough, and I think that's what kind of, you know, made me a better player, is because I wasn't really afraid. You know, I'd go in the corners, no problem. It didn't matter if I got laid out. I'd just get back up and, you know, try to use my speed and
Lin-
play a
Linda had health insurance and
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
insurance.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, for me, and luckily, you know, knock on wood, I never really got hurt. Just a couple broken bones, but
You think
yeah, I
back to it though, guys, it's pretty stupid that tours had no hitting, had the hitting back then. You look back at it, it
oh,
probably was like ridiculous that we even had that at that point, you know?
yeah, it was just really it probably, they tried selling the game a little better, and you know, there was so much money on the line back then, which made the games even worse. You know, it was a bloodbath, like Rob said earlier, like back in the day, it was a bloodbath. But you know, for me, like just seeing the game progress, and it's changed dramatically. I mean, just like the NHL, we always compare it to the NHL, right? Like the clutching and the grabbing and the stick work and the hooking, that's all gone. I mean, you really can't get away with that stuff these days, and the pure skill really comes out in these teams and players, and it's fun to see. It's fun to watch. You know, guys like Joey DiMartino and Junior and Ethan and all those young guys buzzing around the rink. It's actually really fun to watch. And for me, you know, I could sit back and say, wow, like I played in a bunch of different eras, as it gradually, you know, got a little, in my mind, better. But it was fun, obviously, playing back in the day, and I have some great memories. I was telling a friend the other day, I remember, you know, one game, I think Jerry St. Cyr hit our goalie, and I gave him a nice whack and a punch, and he punched me so hard in the face, and uh, you know, knocked my helmet off. And there was another time, um, actually at tours one year when we got into like a line brawl with the Sherwood Forest team. I still remember to this day, the guy was foaming out of his mouth, chasing me down the rink, you know, after a whistle. And I'm doing figure eights backwards, trying to get away from this guy. It was pretty crazy. And I know, you know, one guy jumped in a penalty box after one of our guys. It was just a melee. And there was another time when, you know, I'm in a corner after a whistle, and I'm, you know, clutching with some guy grabbing, and all of a sudden my jersey's ripped, and I had a nice little mark on my mouth from a little jab, you know, when the ref wasn't looking. My jersey split in half, you know. It's just fun times, and the game's changed drastically, and it's cool to see. But I did enjoy playing back then. But luckily for me, I'm still going, you know, so hanging on.
Could you even imagine, Rob, like right now, look at a team like the Tour Roadrunners. Can you imagine the Tour Roadrunners or some of those young teams out of California, like the Nitrous team, or, you know, teams like that playing in the pro division back then? I mean,
But the thing is, but that's just it. I mean, that's why the game needed to change so that these teams can become what they are today. I mean, you put these teams back then, yeah, they would have beat them with today's rules, but if you would have played them with those rules back then, they wouldn't have, because these kids would have been scared to death. so that factors in too. It's like the game's changed, but the game's changed for the better. It's better today because it allows skill, which is always going to trump everything else in any sport that you play. You watch the skill, whether it be basketball, football, the one hand Odell Beckham catch. You're not looking for the lineman who's punching the guy,
Right.
on the line. You're looking for the skill plays. So that definitely plays into our sport today.
Now, Rob, do you see a big advantage? So say a guy like Jay Muro, or a Dan Maxwell, or a Matt Koleski. I mean, all these guys, Matt, recently now that Dumars is shut down temporarily or whatever it's going to be, but over the bunch of these years, all working at rinks, so working at a rink, besides able to I'm not even talking about getting practice time or anything like that, but just being able to see young players, like Dan out in California, got a crop of young kids constantly playing in tournaments or at the rink in your leagues, whatnot. Matt Koleski out in Michigan, Jay, won a great rink Rapid Fire out on Long Island. I obviously get to see kids at our tournaments and whatnot, but for the most part, I don't see hockey anywhere. You're in your office most of the days and you're with your PAMA guys. So that's got to be a nice little advantage that I don't know if those guys take advantage of it enough, especially like a Dan out in Cali. And I mentioned to Dan a while back about, I'd be just trying to get younger with that rink rat team. I mean, do you see that being a big advantage, being around the rinks?
I think so. At the end of the day, you get to see kids that are coming up, those kids that are the next level kids, you can catch them at an early age. If you got the eye for the game, you'll see that, and it'll give you an opportunity to keep an eye on them, see how they develop, and start at least getting the wheels turning. That the moment this kid's of age, I want to get him in the system. So it allows you to see kids on the daily, which, I don't get a chance to see even at the tournaments. When you're bouncing around, you're working your booth, you're involved, with the pro team, your other teams that you're coaching. You got very limited time to be able to spot, being able to watch a D1 game, a junior game, and see, what's coming up, unless you start hearing people talking about it where it draws your attention and go down and head down and take a look. Right. You get a chance to see it at the rink. That's where it's all happening to begin with on your own time.
Yeah, I always wanted to do it as an experiment, but I obviously just hasn't worked out, especially I coach a team already in the division, but I was always curious that if I went around and asked who I thought were all the best players in the junior division or our oldest youth divisions that weren't already on a pro team, and just took 12 random guys and just said, hey, we're going to play as whatever, kind of like a future stars team, no different than I know in the World Championships to one year, they did that with the NHL guys. They had that North American team or whatnot.
World Cup of hockey.
Yeah, World Cup. And obviously, I know you're not winning the championship, but I'd be interested to see how that team would do. And I'm willing to bet that they would do okay. They would lose games, but they'd have the youth, the speed, the skill, and the who gives a shit attitude probably, and go out there. And I bet they would do a lot better than people might think.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, that'd be cool to see. We've talked about that in the past, Tim, doing that. It's just a matter of maybe making some room for another team and actually doing it. It'd be kind of cool.
Now, Rob, we talked about Jay last week too. So we talked about, one of the really special parts of the PAMA Pro division is the invite part of it, and, each year 8 teams qualify in, which is a lot of pressure. You want to make sure you finish in that top 8, even if you're struggling in the tournament, you want to just qualify. No different than World Championships. And, then the other teams have to bid to get in. So 2-part question for you. One, do you like that part of it, that it's not everyone can just get in, it's a free-for-all, that it's a bid to get in? And then secondly, I had brought up last week maybe an idea of getting teams out there a couple days before the pro division starts that are battling to get in, where they have to play some sort of a round robin against one another to then see who gets into the division to stay longer and play, rather than Tim just deciding or whoever deciding that you're better than that team. What do you think on those 2 points?
Well, I think the invitational part is what makes it special. It allows the teams to come in as strong as possible. If you don't have the full roster to begin with, it allows you to, boost your roster based on teams that didn't make it and personnel that's out there available to play. So the one thing you expect when you're coming there is there's no weak games. I think we're all part of tournaments where if you've got to check, you're a pro team. I mean, Timmy, you, me, you and I can put a team together and throw a check for $1,200 and we're a pro team,
Yep.
you know, and that doesn't make a pro team, you know, at the same time, you know, that word pro is loose, you know, it's very loosely used. And, you know, at the same time, I think it's a matter of, you have a showcase tournament. We're showcasing the game at its finest. It allows you to ultimately build each team that way. Obviously, teams come in with a nucleus that they want, but if you're coming in with that team that's never played before, and I have the capability of picking up 2, 3, 4, 5 guys from 2, 3 other teams that aren't attending, I mean, I've just taken my roster and made them competitive.
Oh, yeah.
We might not win, but we're going to be in the games all the way through. You don't make those moves, yeah, you're going to be there, you're going to be playing, you're going to get the experience, but the level of performance ain't going to be the same.
Correct.
And the second part being, and the second part being, you know, we've all come from that world where we've seen where you had to enter the, you know, division, but below, whether it been previous tournaments way back when, and you advance through. I mean, that's a great idea if you can make that happen, because it takes the it takes the human error out of it. You know, you're now not, you know, calculating and gauging who you think this guy is versus this guy, and looking at rosters and, you know, is there any chemistry there that you don't see on paper, you know, that just because you put a couple guys together, you might have a little more chemistry on another team. So it takes that out of the mix, and it'd be cool to see. And it allows, you know, teams to earn their spot.
Be funny. You could have it technically, and a team could beat another team, and then after it, pick up 2 guys from the team that just lost, that just beat, and say, I want you to come with us now and stay because you're going to make our team better. So.
No, for sure. No, for sure.
Even if it's like one day before the tournament starts, right? And just have maybe a 4-team showcase, and the top team or top 2 teams of that day, you know, they come and, you know, they stay.
And
That could be the day before.
Yeah, maybe the ones that lose, they still stay and play in like a lower bracket just to play. So they're not there for no reason. They get to play in something, you know, because the key would be, I thought of 2 days this way. If they don't make it, they're there for a couple of days and they go home. You know, they at least they came out and played a bunch of hockey for 2 days, you know, rather than one day and just leave. But just, obviously we'd have to work out the kinks. But I think in the future, that might be a cool way to change it up a little bit and be able to tell guys again, you know, because what I had done in the past is I would send an email out to Rob Chornomud and Joe Cook and Sean Riley and Chad Siebel and the guys in the sport that are sponsors and say, hey, these are the teams, rank these teams, what you think for seeding. And then we got rid of that and we said, you know what, fuck that. The seeding is going to be based on how you played in the year before, you know, so that we're out of that equation. And then with new teams, it's been basically send Greg and I a roster and we're going to go through them all and make a decision on who we think is better than who. And it's tough because, you know, you get a team like, say, Connex. Connex is a solid team. They had a terrible year last year. They went 0-4. According to Jay Muro, he thinks they're a better team than that record shows in that group. They went 2-2 the 2 years before. But last year they went 0-4. The Alkali Grizzlies go 1-3 and beat Connex in the tournament. So if I let Connex in and not Alkali, Dennis Jelsik's all over me saying, how are they in? We beat them head to head last year, you know, so it's a tough battle. So maybe having them be able to come and play each other and say, hey boys, you fight it out now. And, you know, it's like a Royal Rumble. Whoever's up standing at the end of this is the team in, you know, and that might be the way to go in the future to take the guesswork out.
Yeah, I don't think Connex should be in or Rink Rat personally, but no, I'm kidding. But it allows for a different aspect that could be created, which would add a whole nother level of interest. I mean, if all of a sudden, you know, you might have, you know, pro teams now scouting the teams beforehand, coming in a day early just to see, you know, what these teams could be. You know, you just don't know. Or, you know, you're short a player. I'm going to come in and watch these 4 teams. Whoever doesn't make it, you know, these pro teams that might be shy a player or 2, you know, use that as a you know, draft.
Recruiting,
you know, so it allows there's a lot of things that could come out of that, and nothing negative as far as I can think of, you know, so it just adds another element to the potential, you know, future of what you can do with this division.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a cool idea. I think 1 to 2 days prior, you know, let them battle it out and go from there. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Rob, before we let you go, we talked about who we thought are usually the favorites, and which means nothing, as you know. But when you look at the pro division, who's like a dark horse for you? Who's someone that's not one of those favorites that you look at going, you know what, I could see this team winning a PAMA Pro division in the next couple of years?
Well, at least going into this summer here, there's something that is going to be different than what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
The great equalizer that's out there that, you're now playing in a tournament where I think it impacts the younger teams more than anybody else, because a lot of these younger teams would be normally coming off of college nationals where they played all year long, roll into their local tournament rinks where they're going to be rink rats every day for the next, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So this summer, I think, is the great equalizer. You're going to get a situation where you're going to come into this where the level of player to player will be as even as it'll ever have been in the past, in regards to you're not getting guys that had long ice hockey seasons that are coming in, and sharp, as they were, 3 months ago. And now everybody's got X amount of time to prepare. And now it's going to be I think a more competitive playing field from that perspective, but I think it's going to equalize a lot of advantages other teams and players might have had going into this. So you could see, I think, a deeper run of, because the guys who are normally super sharp might not be as sharp, and those other guys, ultimately have the same amount of time to get ready. So you're going to see I think a more balanced playing field. You're still going to have, I think, the teams that have the depth, which will shine in the end, but I think you'll see a deeper pool of competitiveness all the way through, based on the fact that everyone's not coming into this with different levels of advantage based on who you have on your team, whether it be on the U side, because you're playing all the time and you're coming off of opportunities other people don't have, or you're a professional ice hockey player. And not to mention, there's that whole ice hockey world now that's open for guys that maybe have enjoyed playing and want to play, because they're not going back to ice hockey till October, November now versus July. So you're opening a whole new base of, potential, Chris Terry types, that might be out there that, want to give it a go and feel that they can contribute. And obviously they've got the ice resume to support it.
All right, well, Governor Chornomud, I don't think you answered the question though. So what is your dark horse? So if you take the big four we mentioned out, if you had to put $1 million on a team to win the PAMA Pro in the next couple of years, it'll be this year, but the next 2 or 3 years, who's that team that it wouldn't shock you from what you've seen of coming along and winning that thing?
I think the Roadrunners are a top team that you look at, because they're that young team that's, we've seen some positives come out of them in the last year. They've been in games prior to, but now they're teams that are giving everybody a game. So it's that moment when you figure it out. So I think they're right on the cusp of this could be their summer, and it could be, at the end we're going, well, it came in a year earlier than I expected, but I would put the Roadrunners up there as a team that could surprise in the next few years. And I would say surprise, but for the most part, would be a team that ends up becoming that next team. And who else? The Mudcats I can't ever rule out, because of as long as Leggett's in the pipes, he's going to give that team a chance, to win.
That was my
and it's
as my dark horse.
And it's just a matter of, what are they doing with the young side of it? How much youth are they bringing in to complement the vets?
Right.
So I would put the Mudcats in the mix, just because they've got the toughest part figured out, which is goaltending. And the rest of it is just a matter of how many of their vets come back. You had Larry on, I think on Tuesday. Is Larry playing? Is Turnbull playing? How deep are they on their vets? And then, what did they do to complement it with some youth and talent on the young side? So those would probably be my two guesses there.
Now, Rob, I got to ask you too. So we just wrapped up yesterday. So we had done our top 20 all-time PAMA Pro Invitational countdown, and the number one game of all time, we had listed yesterday. But Number 2 on that list was an epic battle that our two teams had, in 2018. And honestly, not just because Snipers wound up winning the game in overtime. I'd be saying this even if you guys won that game in overtime. I came out of that game that year, and haven't done this a long time. From a fan perspective, I was just thinking in my mind, that had to be the best game in the history of the sport to watch. And I literally had 3 or 4 people come up to me or text me later on that day with the same exact sentiment. So one, I want to ask you, do you agree with that statement about that being at least not, if not the best, one of the best roller hockey games you've ever were a part of on the bench? And then 2, because it was such an up and down roller coaster ride for both of us. I got a lot of gray hairs that game. You don't have much hair, but I'm sure that whatever you had was falling out. So what was going through your mind as a coach in that game? Because I know for me, it was like, oh my God.
Well, that game's very vividly etched in my mind. Obviously, it's not that long ago. I think from a fan perspective, it had to be a great game because you're dealing with, I think on the opening shift, Foxy flies up the floor, scores, right out of the gate. So it's 1-0 on the first shift, and you're just like going, oh my God, guys, let's make an adjustment here. And then next thing you know, we're up 4-1. And, you're thinking that, okay, now it's just a matter of putting the fork in this thing and ending it. And from that point on to see, it's probably one of my most frustrating games. I could say, I think from a fan perspective, you're seeing a total of 13 goals, I think, scored in that game. So, from that perspective, I think it's awesome. It went to overtime, awesome. And, it feeds the fan perspective and the viewer perspective. As a coach, I hated it because I saw us blow an epic opportunity, and you're seeing the meltdown happen, and you can't do anything more than try and, put your finger in the dike, so mistake after mistake. Game's 4-4, we go up 5-4. You guys tie at 5-5. We go up 6-5. You guys tie at 6-6. And then, ultimately losing it in overtime. So from a coaching perspective, super frustrating to be part of that game because you expect that you could close that game out,
right.
But from a watching the game and enjoying the game from an outsider's perspective, I think it's an awesome game to watch. And, you see a lot of talent in that game. And, at the same time, you see two teams battling, and that's what you want to see is, if you could get to overtime in a game where there's a lot of goals scored and you're premiering the top players in the game, that's what we want. So from that perspective, awesome.
Yeah, that was some game by Travis Snow on your team. I remember thinking after that, because I think that tournament, he might have been a little slower getting going in that tournament in the round robin. And that game, he just turned back into Travis Snow. And, our scoring was a little bit more well-rounded, I think, if I remember. But Travis was he was the best player on the rink for most of the game there. And it was pretty impressive watching what he put on that game.
Yeah, that was exactly it. He struggled, I think, going into the tournament there, through the tournament round robin and even the early playoff games. And he showed up in that semi. I mean, it's and I think he even told me he was going to, which is even crazy. I think he told me I got this, I'm ready, and as a coach, you're just waiting for it because you know what he's capable of, and not seeing that on the regular, which is what you're used to. And then all of a sudden, like the floodgates open and that's the guy, but it would have been nice to have a little more support on that side of it, to give him a break. And defensively, what you hope for your guys to do and play, it just seemed like I said, a meltdown on our part, but at the same time, it was a great game. And, like I said, it's one that haunts me a little bit, but at the same time, it was awesome for the spectator.
And for us, it was like, it didn't really matter because, we came out of that game exhausted. I mean, we were done after that game. And then we wound up getting, pumped by Black Ice in the final. And you guys definitely would have given Black Ice a lot better game than we would have. We only had 8 guys. And then one was, Sigmund got hurt in that game, didn't really play in the final. We were down to 7 skaters. So we were screwed, where you guys probably at least would have, I don't know if you would have won the game with Black Ice or not, but it would have been a battle where us. And so we kind of exhausted all our energy in that semifinal. So,
and I think we were the only team that beat Black Ice that tournament. I know we beat them in round robin, and obviously playoffs, it's a whole different game, but definitely would have gone into that game with the confidence that we've already played them. We know what they are, and we know, how we handled them the first time. So I think it would have been a great final, but like I said, it's those opportunities you have, and when you miss them, you're just like, oh my God, we got to wait another year for this, so that's a part of, it culminating in the summer, and that's the last event, and it's the biggest event, but everybody gets up for that one. So when it's over, unless you're, carrying the cup, there's 11 other teams there that are going, God, we missed an opportunity to do this, and we got to wait another, 362 days before we get to do this again. So, that's the tough part, but at the same time, everybody's, I think really understands what it would be to pull that off. Whether you have before, you understand what it is to do it again, and if you haven't done it yet, it's the one you want to do.
Right.
So,
no, for sure. All right, Rob. Well, we really appreciate having you on here. We got Travis Bokina in the waiting room, so we're going to bring him on. We wish you guys all the luck in getting those wheels poured, and hopefully getting them out to more customers. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there dying to get on their Labrada asphalt wheels out there during this time. And as always a pleasure, and we definitely hope to see you pretty soon in the PAMA Pro division, and look forward to hopefully a good sniper Golden Knight battle.
Looking forward to the summer and seeing roller happen again. And I appreciate you guys having me on, and looking forward to a great summer, guys. So let's make the most of it.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Hey, take care, Greg. See you, Timmy.
Take care, Robbie.
All right. That was Rob Chornomud, the Beta Wheels. So we're going to bring on here our buddy Travis Bokina has been waiting patiently. So without further ado, let's bring on Travis.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is PJ Cavalla, the voice of State Wars Hockey, and you are watching the SWH podcast brought to you by Glass Half Full Productions. Be at the rink soon.
We're back, State Wars Hockey podcast, all the way from, are you still in Melville, Connecticut? Medford, Connecticut. Medford. Sorry.
No, Milford is where
Milford.
I'm from.
Okay. Is that where you are today?
No, I actually, my girlfriend and I just bought a house in Durham. So it's actually a farm town.
Oh, wow. So you took the plunge, you bought the house, huh?
Yeah.
You look like a farmer right now with that beard.
Yeah, this is my quarantine beard.
Yeah, I could see that.
Haven't had a haircut or shaved my beard since like February 27th. So I'm going until the barbershops open back up.
Okay.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous, Travis. That would take me about 10 years of quarantine to grow that beard that full. So
yeah, I know. You got a baby face.
Yeah, so definitely jealous of that. So Travis, we said earlier on, you've been a part of State Wars and the sport since day one. And even before that with the snipers and whatnot, and definitely someone we consider family in the sport. One of the, the snipers are a big family, and you're definitely a big part of that family. There's a good shot of Travis in 2005 showing off a medal from that first year at State Wars. And we'll talk a little about that medal later on and if it was heavy or not. But, let's talk about, growing up, in Connecticut. There is obviously a lot of ice hockey in Connecticut. It's never really been known as a huge roller hockey state. What got you involved in hockey in general, and then especially roller hockey growing up? I know your uncle had some influence, but just want to hear from you. Let everyone at home know what got you started in the sport.
Yeah, so when I was like 11, my best friend's dad, Scott Crowley, you guys know him, he started an outdoor roller hockey rink in my town, Milford, not Medford. And I was just hooked from day one. I would pretty much be there every day, skating like before the games, in the middle of like before one game started, one game ended, the next game started. So I just always was at the rink, and then I started running the instructional program there with him and his son Kevin, and was playing in a couple leagues until I was, I think, 16, and then I was able to jump up to the adult league there, and then just that's kind of where roller hockey started. When we were I think we were 14 and under, he took just a group of guys from the outdoor rink, and we went to USA Hockey Nationals for I think 2 years. a couple of
Is that
years.
in Alpharetta, Georgia then at the cooler? Is that the one at the
Yeah,
cooler?
yeah. And that was all we knew. Like we never knew of Narch. We never knew of what USARS is what you guys played back then. Airs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, never knew of that and that stuff until actually I met you two when I was 16. That's
Yep.
another interesting story.
So go ahead, get into that one now, Trav.
Yeah, sure. So I was playing in some little Ironman tournament at Skate Safe in Long Island with the Connecticut outdoor guys. And I had known JP Susko because my uncle moved to Florida and started coaching roller hockey right as JP moved from Long Island to Florida. And then my other uncle was actually doing work on his parents' house and told him that my uncle Mark is involved in roller hockey. So JP started skating out down there with the Daytona Beach Thunder for my uncle Mark. And then next thing he tells me is that they're in a big tournament, and this cocky kid from Long Island decides that he's like, I'm going to play goalie this game. And obviously everyone in the roller hockey world knows JP Susko being a phenomenal goalie. I mean, we don't always see eye to eye, but I guess I could say I got my real roller hockey start from JP, because I ended up going down and playing in a tournament with my uncle, with JP playing. And then fast forward back to when I'm in Long Island playing in that Ironman against Greg, actually, we beat you. Yeah, so then after that, JP came up to me and we were talking. He's like, hey, did you ever think about playing competitive roller hockey? And I was like, no, there's a thing. Because I just grew up playing ice hockey in the little outdoor league by my house. And he's like, yeah, let me introduce you to this guy Tim McManus, who was probably like a 26-year-old cocky guy at the time. And so then I met Tim when I was 16, and yeah, now here we are today.
That's his history, right?
Here we are today, like 18 years later. So
Well, it's funny because I remember still, JP Susko probably has not come through too often on his opinions, Greg, on when he thinks, oh, we should pick up somebody. So usually JP, says something like, all right, JP. But this is definitely one of the few finds that JP made that I would say was A+. And I remember Travis joining our team, and that year, back then we played in a lot of tournaments, right? So we played in a lot of local tournaments. We went to different places to play.
Yeah, you actually had your Mission Eastern Challenge series before you started State Wars.
Right. Yeah. So we would play, the Mission Eastern Challenge, the tournament series I ran on Long Island back in the day. It was awesome. Every month or 2-3 weeks was another tournament in New Jersey, New York. Always sold out, tons of teams playing. Travis is born in 85. So our 85 team, basically 85, 86s or whatnot. I think that every tournament we played in that year or two, Travis won high scorer in. He was just a natural goal scorer. And I know he loves hearing that. And
that was then.
I would never give credit where credit's not due. He was a natural goal scorer, Greg. One of the best I've ever seen. I'm always a big fan of the lefties, maybe because I'm a lefty, but he came on, always want a good lefty on your team. And I believe in every tournament he won high scorer, and we're a dominant team. So now we're going to fast forward to the moron side of Travis Bokina. So that first year, so this is 2002, we were going to Minnesota, big deal, play at Norwich, NHL Arena, XL Energy Center, where the Minnesota Wild would play, best tournament to play in at the time. And we bring our Bantam team out, and we have a stacked team, Travis Bokina, Andrew Oliveri, Danny Genovese, Pat Cannoni, John Mosenson, Adam Schreiber. Just a great team. What'd you say, Greg?
Thomas Stahl. I think he played that.
Was Stahl in that? I don't know. No, Stahl only played with us in Minnesota.
He played the next year in Florida.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So we go there, guys, right? And I'm there earlier because I think our junior team or another division had played early. I'm there the whole time back then, coaching a bunch of sniper teams. And I'm real excited about our Bantam team because we have a great team. And I get there and moving along, and the Bantams are getting ready to start. So I see Travis's dad walk in the rink. You know, we're in an NHL arena. It's a big setup. Some of the guys are shuffling in to get ready for the first day to get set, you know, probably looking for Rob to get wheels or whatnot. And Labrada was our sponsor. And I see Mr. Bokina walk in. And Mr. Bokina back then, you know, he's a pretty intimidating dude, right, Greg? You know, big bald head, kind of that goatee, big dude, you know, kind of didn't talk a lot. So, you know, but even though he's like, you know, he's like a puppy dog when you talk to him, he seemed like, you know, an intimidating guy. And he walks in just shaking his head and pissed off looking. And I'm like, what's going on here? And 2 minutes later, I see Travis come like hobbling into the rink. Were you on crutches at that point, Travis?
Yeah.
You are, right? Okay. He comes in on crutches.
No, I wasn't on crutches.
I think
yeah,
you were.
You were.
Yeah. I remember I thought I was going to break the crutch over your head.
Yeah.
So we come to find out that the night before they were leaving, you guys were driving to Minnesota, right, Travis?
Yeah, we drove to Minnesota and we were actually picking up Andrew Legiro to come with us.
All right. So I'm sure this had to be a real fun drive for you and your dad and Andrew at this point. But the night before Narch finals is going to start for our Bantam team and they're going to leave to drive, Travis decides he's going to go to the rink to jump on a men's team to go play in a men's league game or whatever it was, scrimmage with a bunch of older guys. Now, he at this point, this is 2002, so Travis is 17. So, all right, he had his birthday yet. His birthday's in August, right? So 16. So he goes down. You know, his dad tells him, Travis, don't go play. Like, just rest up. We got to leave in the morning. We got a long drive. We got a big tournament. No reason to get, you know, anything happen or whatever. And try, no, you know, know-it-all teenager. He goes to play. Somebody falls on him or whatnot. Something happens and breaks his ankle. So now I'm at the tournament and our best scorer, the guy who's won the high score every game of the year so far for us, walks in with a broken ankle. And the funny part I always think about it is, you know, Christy, the trainer, who wanted to be our trainer at State Wars years later, you know, had a pretty tight connection with our group. And every single game, Travis would be talking to her and she'd be massaging his leg and giving him medicine. And I hear every game, oh, you're going to play this game. Meanwhile, I know his ankle is broken. And he'd warm up for 2 seconds and come hopping off, you know. And we did this all the way through the last game of the tournament because we wound up going to the championship and we wound up losing in the finals to the Anaheim Mission Bulldogs, which is Troy Redmond and Nathan Sigmund's team. And I always look back at that just saying, wow, I really think we could have beat that team with Travis. And, you know, that started maybe like the moron period for Travis for a little bit, Greg, for me.
Yeah. You know, obviously we have some great Travis stories, but we won't get into them at this point. You know, they're pretty good and for another time, but Travis was a natural goal scorer, as he would say. He could find the net like no other. And that was the year that Andrew Oliveri just kind of put the team on his back and scored a gazillion goals. But Travis definitely would have helped in the goal scoring department that year, that's for sure. And I'm sure Travis regrets going to that men's league game, you know, because it could have made a huge difference.
Yeah, and that would have been his first Narch playing in too, so it was a big deal for him too. I'm sure that'd be pretty crushing. But he went on to have a lot of great tournaments after that. And let's dive right into State Wars. So Travis, 2005, you know, was our first year of State Wars, Bensenville, Illinois. You were playing with Connecticut, obviously. You know, back then that year you played with the, you know, you had the 85, 86 team. It was that year, and you guys, do you remember? First, before we get into any specifics about it, do you remember that year, the first year coming out to State Wars?
Yeah, I remember I was actually kind of bitter that you didn't ask me to work the first year.
Okay.
But then obviously from the second year on, I worked up until 2 years ago, every year.
Mm-hmm. Your girlfriend told you couldn't anymore, yeah.
No, that's not what happened.
Okay.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I thought we had a pretty decent team. Like I started the whole podcast with like my outdoor guys from Connecticut trying to make the jump over to sport court and indoor roller hockey, because we never saw any of that from where we lived. So I mean, I was expecting to go in and score a ton of goals and hopefully win the championship. That was my plan.
Right. Do you remember, so your first game ever in 2005, 85-86 division, was against a state that you probably had never played against ever in your life, or maybe even after? Do you remember who you guys played your first game ever against at State Wars?
I don't, but if I had to guess, maybe Wisconsin,
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Okay.
So that first year, you guys beat Hawaii 7-2 the first game. Then you lost to Missouri 4-3. Then you beat New York 3-0, and you beat Georgia 8-0. So you finished 3-1 through the round robin, went to the playoffs, and then in the playoffs, you guys did pretty well. You beat Missouri again 7-3. You beat Colorado 5-1, and then you lost in the championship game to a team that you would know really well from where your uncle lives, Florida, 5-2 that first year. So that was pretty good for that first year there. And then, looking at Travis, individually here, had a pretty awesome year right off the bat. In the round robin, you had, let's see here, 4 games played, 9 goals, 7 assists, 16 points, which is pretty impressive right there. And not a big shocker, but you tied Brandon Barnett, the two of you guys who wound up becoming a buddy of yours later on through Lindenwood and whatnot. Yeah. But you guys both tied for the high score that first year out in the 85-86 division. So right away, Greg, the scoring started for Travis. And, with Connecticut, he had to really be the man on that team.
Yeah, I remember watching. Travis was dominant back then, obviously, and he could always find the back of the net. And he was loving it because he's the man. He was the man on that Connecticut team, and he was out there all game and taking all the shots on the power play. And so for Travis, that was all Travis right there. He loved being the man. He loved being the guy, and stats don't lie. He deserved to be out there. So.
And he even played in the senior division that first year. 4 games played, 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points as a young buck playing up with those guys. Then in 2006, Travis, same thing. Now it was the 85-83 division. You guys did okay. There's a couple good shots of you here playing that second year in Illinois. You played senior and the 85-83 division. Senior division wound up winning the bronze medal. But just like in 05, in 2006, you made Team America as the top players in your division, which, obviously not a big shock there. But you can see Travis having his gloves and that beautiful Connecticut look. I always love the old Whaler look of the Connecticut jerseys, the green and the blue. But, yeah, Travis right up the bat doing really well. And then, moving into 2007 was a big year because, Travis – here's still 2006 here, all-star team, no biggie. As a team winning the bronze medal there, the senior team there, some familiar faces there, Johnny Pinheiro on that team. And then let's freeze this one here, Greg. So Team North America that year in the division, a lot of familiar faces in the sport here and guys today that you still see. So Andy Cripps back when he had hair on the far left bottom there. Vince Free, JP Susko, who's the tiny guy right there before all the steroid, and all the muscles.
Yes. Steve Kemp from Detroit.
Yeah, Tommy Bruce, Jason Shasowski, Travis Fudge, Barnett, and who's that handsome guy with the lemon in his hair right there, Travis? Is that Greg Thompson?
It looks like he's got frosted tips too.
Yeah. We actually I think I think it was college maybe we all dyed our hair for some reason.
I think Tommy's hair's not dyed, so.
Yeah, he always shaved it though. So I think that was it. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
So Travis, how did it feel back then to make a team like this, that all-star team? It just had to make you feel pretty good coming from Connecticut, knowing you're out there with all the big boys.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it felt great. Back when I was younger, I as you have in a video that I love the spotlight. Obviously as we get older, that changes. And I was actually texting Greg. I was actually very nervous for this call, being on the Zoom with the video, and I don't know, it's just not me anymore.
Well, in 2007, we fast forward to the next year, still in Bentonville, Illinois. We were in Illinois, as you remember, those first 3 years. Awesome arena. Your senior team. Now, your senior team back then, this is what I always remember about your senior team, Travis. So Billy DiNapoli was your coach.
Yep.
Who, as you know, back then was a lunatic for this. You know, he loved the hockey and took a lot of pride in your team. And he was one of the first guys, probably, whether he was throwing money of his own or getting fundraisers, whatever, you know, he was all about getting the best players. And he had, you know, Johnny Pinheiro and yourself and Justin Palos and Crowley and different good players. He was trying his best. You know, the senior division back then was, you know, kind of like a pro division. It was the best players. You know, you had a Greg Thompson-led New York team with Derek Kern and Tommy Bruce and Susko and those guys. And you had the Michigan team and Missouri and all these great teams. And you guys always fell short. But in 2007, that last year in Illinois, and I still remember watching this game, you guys wound up winning the whole thing. You know, you won the championship. You know,
I think
not
it was
only won it, but you won. What's that?
Wasn't it AA?
For that, well, yeah, but there was no AAA, I don't think, right? There was just the only.
No, I think there was, because I think maybe New York won it, because we missed the. I want to say we missed the AAA bracket, and we ended up winning AA, I think, unless I'm mistaken.
Let me see right here. It's a good question. So let's see. So no, you guys won the AAA.
Oh, okay.
That was the year you guys won it. Yeah, New York that year. I could even tell you the scores here. So that year in 2007, so you guys, first round of the playoffs here, you guys beat New York, their second team, 6-0. Then the second game, you beat Wisconsin, Vince Free, Andy Cripps, 3-2.
Yeah.
And then you beat New Jersey, Thomas Stahl, Jimmy McGrath, all those boys, 4-2 in that second round. So
I did break my finger that year, Trav. So
that was the year your thumb, right?
yeah. But here's a clip. Oh,
Greg was a little softer back then, Travis. Remember that? So
yeah. So here's a clip of Travis in the finals, scoring a big goal against New Jersey. Yeah, Travis loved being in the spotlight, but that was some pass from Johnny Pinheiro.
Yeah.
Behind the back spinorama, and Travis, you know, did what he does
The thing with
best.
Johnny is you never knew when he was going to pass it. You just always had to be ready, because it's almost like he only passed when he had no other options. You know that. We've played with him.
Yeah, his game has changed over the years, but
But
yeah,
he-
back then he
he
was
could
deadly.
definitely pull off moves and hold on to the puck probably better than anyone. It was amazing to watch him play.
Yeah,
Greg,
100%.
I was looking here, Greg, and that year you guys, and you probably didn't play because you have no points here. But the New York team, you guys lost in overtime in the quarterfinals to that New Jersey team that they beat in the finals. Ryan Fulton with the overtime winner. But the New York team was pretty good. Tommy Bruce, John Mosen, Ryan Carey, Kenny Carney, Derek Kern, you know, some good players, Pete Pennicky in goal. But Travis, you know, again, taking the team on his back, and he won the MVP, Most Valuable Player Award, a goal and 2 assists in that championship game. So again, Greg, you know, just consistency with Travis. Every year, you think of Connecticut, you know, there's very few players that you say you think of a state at State Wars and you think of one guy. Like you could say New York, who do you think of? A lot of guys will say Greg Thompson, but some may say Tommy Bruce, some may say Derek Kern, some may say John Schiavo, you know, different players. You think of Connecticut, you think Travis Bokina all day long.
Yeah, I would agree there. Weren't many, you know, phenomenal players like Travis. Obviously, there was always solid competitive players, but Travis definitely was on another level back then, and that's why, you know, he had to branch out and play with other teams for other tournaments, because a lot of them didn't play at that high level. And Travis, you know, at State Wars took him to that promised land and to the highest level. So obviously, kudos to Travis, because, you know, he always put those Connecticut teams on his shoulders, on his back. So.
Well, 2008, Travis, you know, senior team, you wound up winning the silver medal that year. But once again, high score of the tournament that year. 4 games played, 8 goals, 5 assists, 13 points through the round robin. And then next couple of years, you know, playing with the Connecticut men's leagues teams, you guys, you know, did okay. It's really tough for Connecticut to win that AAA division. I give you guys credit just for playing AAA, considering the pool is so much smaller. But then 2011, because you were going to school in Lindenwood, which we'll get into later on in Missouri, you were able to play with the Missouri guys in the elite division. So that's, you know, the Missouri Young Guns, which is basically the alkali team of today, you know, the Kettler, the Novak, all these young bucks. You know, here it was the second year of that elite division. You jumped on, and even Cody Kettler admitted it when he was on that day, just having the leadership of an older guy coming on and help right the ship for them. You know, 4 games played, 9 goals, 3 assists, 12 points in the elite division that year. And you guys won the gold medal, as you see with the check there. Pretty cool stuff for that elite division for you.
Yeah, no, I felt great that year. To be honest, I kind of came out at State Wars with vengeance, because that was the first year that I was replaced on the snipers for like Narch and Tours. I had just finished college playing at Lindenwood, so I was still eligible to play with Missouri, and I was like, you know what, let me get on the team. And I actually coached those guys in junior, I believe, and they won the junior division. And then we ended up I think we put in a pro team or an elite team kind of last minute. Because we only had, like I said, you said we only had 6 guys. And one of them was pretty much just there in case we couldn't breathe. So we really played with 5 guys. And that was a great tournament. I mean, I think that it kind of put me back on the map in terms of roller hockey, because I had been out for a couple of years, and then that was the summer I had finished college. I wanted to get back into it with you guys, and there was just no room for me anymore. So I kind of playing with those guys. We had a pretty good chemistry. I mean, I mentioned Johnny Pinero with some of the moves that he pulled and how he controlled the puck and got through things, but that tournament, Kyle Novak was lights out.
Yeah, he's a good player.
That was his coming out party.
Greg Travis mentioned, you know, just to clarify here, we always have a discussion about this, but he talks about getting cut from the snipers.
No, I said there was no room left. I didn't say
early. You know, it's, you know, basically he kind of filled in the dots by saying, you know, he took off for a year or two, so you know, he stopped playing for a while. I don't remember what the reasons were with school and whatnot, but he couldn't play or he couldn't come away for the summer for a year or so. And we just
I know the reasons if you want me to tell you.
What's that?
I know why if you want me to tell you.
Sure, tell me.
Let's hear it.
So I think it was Narch. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe 2000. Maybe it was that year. 11. Was it in Canada?
No.
San Jose.
Yeah. No. 2011 was Florida.
Okay. Well, then I'm a little off. But I remember one year in San Jose, I was still in college, and I had to work over the summer, and I couldn't afford the plane ticket out. So that was where I initially started my demise, just because I had to work in order to go back to school and have money in my pocket. And then maybe the next year was in Mississauga. And I mean, at this point in my life, I'm okay to admit it, but I had got myself into some trouble in school.
Over the border.
Yeah, where I had a DUI when I was in college. And I remember driving with Greg.
I didn't go that.
Pardon?
I didn't go that year, so I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. So then I just figured most of the time it was with you. I think it was Pat Cannoni, Danny Genovese, and JP Susko. Actually, that was the exact crew. And I got denied.
Or not get over.
What?
Didn't half the carload not get over the border?
Well, I'm not going to mention anyone else. I'll just mention myself. But I got denied at the border to cross because at the time, Canada was very strict on DUIs, and
Yeah, I
I
remember.
just got one in 2008, so I couldn't get over the border to play. So that was maybe the second one that kind of gave me the old.
Yeah, I think it was a matter of, a couple years go by, guy can't play. We're always picking up guys to go, and then you got to cut someone else. So it just seemed like an unfortunate situation for everybody. But regardless, you were able to jump up with a good group of guys. You played with Alkali a little bit with Joe Cook's team. You in 2011. What's that? You didn't
Nope.
play with him at all?
No, we won elite, and then I was the only person left off that roster to play when Joe decided to sponsor them.
Okay.
I remember that
At
one very
least you
well.
got the elite win. You got the elite win in 2011 with the Young Guns there. Big part of that. And then 2013, Senior AA Connecticut again, win the high scorer. Even 2 years later, back in the senior division, again, proven once again, winning a third high scorer at State Wars, which is not easy to do, especially in all these AAA level divisions. And then, 2015, the PAMA Pro division had started at State Wars, and you were lucky to jump on with a really good squad with Matt Koleski and the Mission Back Border Cats. And you played with them 2015, 2016, 2017. There's a picture of you in 15 playing against Mission Next Gen, and then last year you played as well. You had 1 year you missed in 2018 for the Border Cats, but. Just speak a little bit about getting to play with a new group of guys in Michigan, Matt Koleski and the Border Cats.
So to be honest, this is probably the closest knit group of guys for a team that I've played with, because pretty much all of them play in a men's league back home, and then you add me to the list, who I'm an older guy. I'm not a natural goal scorer anymore. So it kind of just changed my game a bit and started playing defense with them. And the guys are just great. I can't say anything else about that. I mean, you know them all. They're all great guys. They've always been respectful. And the fact that they all are best buddies and hang out outside of hockey, they're a special group. And then we've obviously brought in some younger guys that have helped the last couple of years, as like Cal Kafuk and Brandon Glover and what is it? Tilly.
Hunter Tillotson.
For a year. Hunter played with you guys for a year.
Yep.
No, I mean, I can't say anything else. And Matt's great. Matt, you guys always say it, but Matt's definitely one of along with Tim, yourself, and Rob, you guys are kind of like the three guys in the sport that are there for the right reason and really not many ulterior motives. So I love playing for Matt. He's great.
Now, how much did it kill you, Travis? I was thinking about this today. So in 2018, the Border Cats had one of the biggest wins of their pro careers, and knocked out the Snipers in the quarterfinals, which was a great game by them. They played awesome. They deserved every minute of it. I know for you, as a former Sniper, that had to sting a little bit. The 1 year you're not there, and we had beaten you guys a couple times in the tournaments. Just a competitive side of you, I'm sure it had to sting a little bit sitting at home. Either I don't know if you watched the game or you just heard about it, but not being there for that had to sting a little bit. No.
Yeah, no, definitely. I was actually watching it. I was watching it from England. I was in England at the time, which is why I couldn't make the tournament. And I was just so happy for them, because you guys are always the team that we're right there with that end up winning. And the fact that they actually finally beat you when it counted, I was pumped.
Yeah.
I had no remorse for you guys at all. I was just pumped for my guys,
Oh, for sure.
then they had to turn around and play black ice. So I was like,
No easy feat there.
no.
Yeah. That was a great game by the Border Cats. And, obviously I do wish you were there for it, because the game could have went the other way if you were there, but no, just kidding. But no, it was a great game by them, and obviously we always have battles with the Border Cats, so it was definitely well deserved by them.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember watching and hearing about, like, obviously Lemke is always clutch, but J Strauss, he just took it to another level.
Yeah,
100%. He played great that game. As he always does, but he played really good that game. The team just bought in, and you saw the confidence building all that game. Cal Skafuk, young stud, scores one, and the team just gets going. And
Yeah.
one of those games on the bench where I just saw it coming that we were going to lose the game as the game went along. But besides playing at State Wars, another thing that Travis, playing in Paiha has been a big part for you. And I think part of the reason why you've been such a good player is, you get to play it pretty competitively during the year as well. And living in Connecticut, it's not too far from Long Island. You're able to come out, practice with teams and play and whatnot. And you had, I think, 5 championships you've won playing in Paiha, which Greg had mentioned might be the most all time of any player, because not only winning with the Sting, which has been arguably the best team ever in the Paiha, you won it the one year, I know, with the Missouri group, because we played you guys in Colorado in the finals when I was coaching. And that's another team you kind of put on your back a little bit there and knocked us out. So how much fun has that been too, getting to play, Paiha, some travel roller during the season, as you with Greg back when he had hair?
Yeah. No, Paiha was always great. I loved it because we'd always have probably 1 weekend a month where we got to go to, like, New Jersey for a night or Pennsylvania for a night, and just going out and hanging out with the guys that I essentially grew up with in the roller hockey world. I mean, you got Greg, you got JP,
Penicky,
Rowan Porter, Pete Penicky,
Carney,
Derek Kern for a little bit, Sean Carney, like all the guys that we grew up with playing with, like with the Snipers when I started as a 16-year-old. A lot of us kind of merged onto the Sting, which, I mean, that was the best part, like going away, and then we just got to play hockey on top of it.
Did you play that year on the 495ers when I coached, and then we didn't go to? You were on the team that year, right?
Yeah, that was the year though.
Johnny Mack, and
then we backed out. Were you on that team?
Yeah, but I didn't really play.
you played a couple weekends.
I had knee surgery that year.
Okay.
So, like, I played enough to qualify, I think, but then
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter because we weren't paying our way to go.
Right. For nothing. I remember, Greg, a funny story I remember, and just shows the side of Travis in Paiha when we were in Colorado. So even though there's no reason to be mad at Travis, I'm just competitive. So I'm just mad at Travis that he's playing against us there. And, and he's playing, he was going to school out there at that time. So no brainer, he's going to play in the Missouri division with the Missouri guys. But, I'm more thinking like, screw Travis, playing against him. And deep down, I'm knowing that he's going to hurt us in the series because he's a good player. So we're in Colorado at the old rink that CJ Yoda used to run, that we talked about with Kevin Dwyer the other day, the arena back then. I don't know what it was called, Infinity, or what it was even called then.
Yeah.
But real nice arena to have a best of 7 series against these guys. So we each had our own locker rooms for the whole stay. So Greg and I had found out, we got the keys from the rink guy to get into Travis's locker room. So, one of our nicknames, Travis, we used to always call him either Tetley or Tetley tea bags or whatever else. So Greg and I got a bunch of tea bags, and we went in the locker room, and did we untie his skates or we tied them together? I know we did something with the skates.
You might have cut the laces. I'm not sure. Yeah.
And then we took the tea bags and we put them in his skates and in his gloves and whatnot. And we
hung
just
them in my stall too.
What's that?
You hung them in my stall.
Okay, yeah, we hung some up. And sure enough, next game they're on the rink, and I had forgotten all about it at this point. And I don't know if Travis scored a goal or whatnot.
Yeah, he did.
Probably
Yeah.
I did.
And he goes skating by the bench and he nails me in the head with a tea bag that he held in his glove the whole game. So I just remember shaking my head like, he got me.
You were so pissed that time.
Oh, that was so funny.
I think you flipped out on the refs. You tried getting me a penalty for misconduct or something.
I was just being a sore loser, I guess. But they wound up beating us in the series. I don't think they even won
Smoked us,
7. 6 games, maybe they beat us.
We had a good squad though. We had Cody
Yeah.
Kettler, Sean
Barsh,
Sexton.
Matt Sexton,
probably
Justin
Corey
Brown
Kettler.
was our goalie.
I think Rice was playing.
Justin Maroon.
Was he there too?
Justin was there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys had a good team. But Travis, again, scores a big goal and puts me in my place or whatever. So that was just Travis for you. So let's talk about Lindenwood a little bit. So Travis, I think I still remember the day of you talking to Ronnie Bealston at Narch one year. I don't know if I made the connection or he just knew you and about getting you to come to Lindenwood. But then you wound up playing ice hockey first before you even started playing roller. So you played, 4 years of ice and 2 years of roller when you were at Lindenwood?
Yeah, so I mean, we were in Florida at Estero, and I remember you and Greg again kind of made the introduction to Ronnie, and you had me walk down to I don't know, somewhere on the lower bowl or something. You guys were sitting with Ronnie, and then I came down and we started talking, and things kind of moved pretty quick because we were at Narch in July, and then so then we went to State Wars, right from Florida, right to State Wars. And then while I was at State Wars, I probably maybe 10 days after meeting Ronnie, I signed my paperwork to attend college for that upcoming, I think it was probably 11 days later, I had to report to school. So it was a very quick process. Previous year, I had played junior ice hockey in New Jersey for the New Jersey Hitmen in the EJHL. And then
Not a big deal.
I didn't have the best year and kind of I had no more schools looking at me. So then I was talking to Greg when we were at Narch, and he's like, well, why don't you just come to Lindenwood and play roller hockey? And the thought never really crossed my mind. So then you guys had the intro. I did all the paperwork to get into school. And then in order to get into school, I actually had to talk to the ice hockey coach, Derek Schaub, because he was in admissions also at the time. So while we were talking and going over the paperwork stuff, it came up that I played ice hockey. And he was like, oh, you played ice hockey? Oh, well,
Stole you.
why don't you try out for the ice hockey team and see if you make it? And then, because roller hockey tryouts are a month later, so maybe you could do both, or if you make the team, whatever. So I was like, all right. So I ended up bringing my ice hockey equipment out with me because I was only going to bring my roller, and then I brought my ice hockey stuff out. Went to tryouts, ended up making the team, and had a pretty good spot on the team.
No big.
That I just ended up playing ice hockey for the next 4 years.
You screwed over Ronnie for the first 2 and then went to roller the 3rd year? Is that how it worked? Or
No, I played ice for 4 years.
right.
So during my undergrad, I guess you could say I screwed Ronnie over for 4 years.
Oh, okay, 4 years. Okay.
And then I stayed actually and I did grad school. I got my MBA, and
So how many years you go to Lindenwood total? 6?
no, 5.5.
Are you a surgeon now?
5.5. I have my master's degree.
Okay.
Pretty normal.
Okay.
Pretty good, yeah.
So then during grad school, I was in grad school for a year and a half, and I was actually able to play roller hockey while I was in grad school, which was a great experience as well.
So you won a national championship, 1 in roller, 1 in ice, correct? While you were there?
Yeah, so we won the national championship for the ACHA Division I for ice hockey my senior year in 2009. And then the following year in grad school, 2011 or 2010, I mean, we won roller, my first year playing roller. That was awesome to go back to back.
Travis's stats, Greg, in roller hockey at Lindenwood: 53 games played, 51 goals, 38 assists, 89 points. And actually, I didn't mention earlier, his State Wars points are even more impressive. 98 games played, 116 goals, 90 assists for 206 points. So more than 2 points per game at State Wars. That's pretty impressive considering he didn't have a point in any of his games playing last year at State Wars. He was 0 for 5 in points in games last year in the PAMA Pro division.
Well,
Yeah.
once it became the pro division, my points started diminishing because I
noticed
moved back. Yeah, me too. Yeah, so I just wasn't, obviously, like with all those great players, I wasn't the goal scoring prowess anymore.
Well, I think, it has to do with a lot. As you get older, you're not playing as much.
Right.
And, if the PAMA Pro division had started in those years, because when you won the championship in the elite division in 2011, and looking back here again, I mean, you had 12 points in 4 round robin games. That basically was the pro division in the State Wars at that point. I mean, you look at those teams, the Missouri Meltdown is almost the Snipers. The Missouri Young Guns is Alkali. The California team was PAMA,
Right.
So you were a top scorer in the division then. It's just more the time period as the PAMA Pro finally started. You're getting a little bit more older and,
Your role changed a little bit.
and maybe not playing as much, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not playing as much. And yeah, no.
Yeah. Like I said, and your roles change as well. You're more of a defenseman who's, breaking out passes for the younger guys to score goals. So
like I'm more like my role now on the Border Cats. I'm a stay-at-home defenseman. My line mate is Ryan Kish, who's awesome. Still think he should have been on Team USA, but it is what it is. The kid's awesome, and so he's gonna go, and I'm gonna stay back. And you would have never thought this 15 years ago that I would be. I mean, I try to be lockdown defenseman, but that's what my role is now.
I always said there's no D in Travis Bokina, so, to see where you're at now. And Matt and I would have those conversations. Now he looks at you as a guy you could count on to win a big face-off, a good defensive player, a good leader in the locker room, a good voice for the young players and whatnot. And obviously, my experience with Travis Bokina is the opposite. When he was playing for me, he was not the older guy, so he wasn't the voice. He definitely, I wouldn't have considered him a leader on the team. He led by example, scoring goals. Didn't play a lick of defense and just scored a shit ton of goals whenever we needed them. So there's a total difference, and that just speaks to Travis a little bit, Greg, about how he can play both those roles. He's adapted to the time, and that's why he can still play in the PAMA Pro division and be a pretty effective player.
yeah, very well rounded. It took him a lot of years to figure that out, I think, and I'm sure he'll agree. But yeah, defense wasn't in his repertoire. That's for sure. But he could definitely bury a puck, and we all know that.
The other thing with Travis too, Greg, is, he's been important to State Wars as far as a big part of our staff too. Worked for many years in the summer as a tournament director until, things change with jobs and whatnot, unfortunately for everybody. Here he is, a young Travis here back in 2008 or 2009 there, shaking hands of a player at a medal ceremony. But here he is out at Winter Wars West, came out with us out there with the crew down in Huntington Beach, having a nice off day before the tournament started. He's been a big part of it, worked a lot of tryouts. I know North Carolina was always a favorite of ours together. Always loving bringing him out to tryouts, working with the kids, always really good with kids and whatnot. So, here's a good throwback picture, Travis, we put out yesterday. So this is in 2006. So you think about it, this is 14 years ago. And 3 of these guys are still the same knuckleheads they are today as then. And you got JP Susko, you got Greg Pantaleo next to him, but I'm more spoken about JP Susko, George Collins, and Tommy Bruce. Definitely a few cocktails in them, as you can see there. And they're just at your game, even then, just heckling you, yelling out to you. And it's funny because even on that video before, I don't know if you could hear it, when you guys won the championship, they were even at that game yelling to you and stuff during the game. So as much as they bust your balls, they all love you a lot too, because they want to even go down to your games and watch you play. Yeah. And I think that was just a great throwback pick right there.
No, that's definitely a good one. Tommy still looks exactly the same.
Yeah, except he's got hair down to his ass now. It's the only difference. But yeah, so that's a great pick. But as far as getting back to the State Wars staff, Greg, I'm always reminded this is an example of Travis too, to me, of his integrity and something that when he was put in a really weird situation, how he handled it. So one year, and I don't even know what year this was, I'd have to say 2008 maybe or so, we went down to Florida to run tryouts, and Travis worked with us. And Travis mentioned earlier his Uncle Mark was a pretty big influence when he was younger about being a roller hockey coach. So his Uncle Mark had coached some of the young Florida teams, and his cousin was attending the tryout. And back then we had a pretty big tryout, I remember, at the Palm Beach Skate Zone, and there was a lot of kids. It was a pretty intense tryout. And Travis's cousin was, like a middle of the pack kind of kid, definitely wasn't a Travis Bokina, which I'm sure always killed his uncle watching him. He loved Travis, he was the stud coming down, but his cousin was just more of a hard worker kind of kid. Nothing wrong with that. And the tryouts go on. And I remember back then, we had so many kids, and we'd sit down in the private room and just talk about who we're taking. And I remember I was feeling uncomfortable because I know his family, and I know Travis is in a weird spot because his cousin to me is on that cusp of probably not making the team. And if he wasn't Travis's cousin, probably wouldn't even have been in the conversation at that point. But I had him on my maybe list because he was Travis's cousin. And were you there with us, Greg? You were there with us.
No,
right?
I wasn't. I remember getting the call though on Monday.
Oh, and I remember saying to Travis, what are you thinking? What are you, your cousin? And he was like, basically like, what the fuck am I thinking? He goes, he's not on this team, and, he made me feel a lot better about it because he was like, hey, he doesn't deserve it. Like, he didn't work hard. He didn't make the team, and it was pretty uncomfortable because not only did we cut him, but then we went out to lunch with his aunt and his uncle and the cousin right afterwards. Do you remember that, Travis?
Yeah, where did we go? Applebee's?
Yeah. Was it just you and I, or was it someone else with us working? Was Brian with us, or I don't remember who was with us?
It was someone. I want to say maybe it was Sean McGrath.
I don't remember who it was. I remember Wilfredo helping us do the announce. I remember I needed someone to help me give the jerseys out because Travis and whoever else it was, maybe it was Brian or Sean, were on the rink, and I needed someone to help me call out kids' names for the jersey numbers. And Wilfredo Leon was there. And I didn't know Wilfredo that well yet. And he was always a big help. And he had said, I'll help you. And I said, okay. So he's calling out names. And those that know Wilfredo know it's hard to understand them. And I'm like, how the heck did I pick this guy? Everybody here to yell out names of kids. And nobody even knows what the heck he's even saying out here. But getting back to the main story, we went out to lunch after to Travis' aunt and uncle. And they were cool. Like, there was nothing weird about it. But again, it said a lot about Travis to me that he was doing what was right for the team Florida, for the kids that were there, and for State Wars, and not thinking about, hey, I got to get my cousin on this team somehow.
Yeah, do you remember that, Trav?
Oh, I remember it vividly.
Yeah.
Did you hear any shit about that later on, or no?
Nah, no, they knew.
Yeah, he just didn't get any Christmas presents after that.
No more free trips down to Disney World after that.
Yeah, no.
So Travis, I'm going to use the time here. We got a little speed round. We call this State Wars speed round. I'm going to ask you some questions here. Just throw out an answer that comes in to your mind quickest, just to let the fans at home know a little bit more about you away from hockey. So first question for you, Connecticut or Missouri?
Connecticut.
Okay. Do you pronounce it Piha or Piha?
Piha.
Okay. Ice hockey or roller hockey?
Roller hockey.
Beer or wine?
Beer.
Favorite food?
Pizza or steak?
Deep dish or New York style?
New York for 100%. Actually, New Haven style, which is number one on every single list. So
okay.
Connecticut, by the way, for you those of you that don't know.
Said no one who ever lived in New York, but okay. Out of all the teams in the years of State Wars on the state level, when I'm playing for Connecticut, name a team or two from a state that you always looked at as, that was going to be a big challenge when you saw that state on the schedule. Who were a couple of those states for you growing up?
Missouri and New York. Go figure, right?
Yeah. Youngblood or Miracle?
Miracle.
Okay. When you fly on a plane, do you recline the seat? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ooh. Dexter wouldn't like that, Greg.
Right?
Flown with Dexter plenty of times.
That's his new thing now. He doesn't believe in reclining anymore. So,
Oh, geez. He's always got a new thing.
Chick-fil-A or Chipotle?
Chipotle?
So, out of all the State Wars staff, best guy to have as your roommate on the road.
Tim?
Oh, okay. In the PAMA Pro division, you've been playing it now since the beginning of 2015. Out of all the players in the division, who's the guy you look at as, to me, he's the best player? He's the guy. If I could be one guy in the PAMA Pro right now, I'd trade plays with that guy. Who's that guy for you in the PAMA Pro division?
Can I give you two?
Sure.
Travis Noah and Matt White.
Out of all the guys you've played with in your whole life, best locker room guy?
Ooh, Kyle Siciliano.
Okay. Why?
He doesn't, he's like the leader on our team, like the voice on the Border Cats. And he's just so mellow and nonchalant all the time. You guys probably know him. He's a character, jokester. But when it comes down to it, he says the right things at the right time. And he's the guy that, Matt mentioned something about me, but I think Kyle's the guy that, you know what, now's when he turns off the jokes and becomes serious, that's when we buckle down.
Yeah, when you think of the Border Cats, Greg, they definitely have a lot of guys like a Siciliano. You mentioned Ryan Kish before, or Greg Lemke. They have a lot of guys that I would consider they kind of coast under the radar a little bit. They're not as much of a household name as some of the guys we've mentioned in past or whatever, but they got a lot of really good hockey players. And like Travis had said, because they all are buddies, they play together a lot at home. Unfortunately, with Dumar's closed right now, they're not playing as much as they normally would, but a lot of those guys would play in the beer leagues together, probably play ice hockey together. Definitely makes a big advantage. And you see that on and off the rink, Travis, right? With that group?
Yeah, definitely. They're just, so for example, last year before we went to State Wars, I flew out a day early because it was better to fly into Detroit and then just drive to Fort Wayne. Jay Strauss, who I believe is the most underrated goalie in roller hockey. I'm not just saying that because he's my goalie, but you guys seen time and time again where he just comes out of nowhere. His family organized this event where we went to like a lake that was all blow up things on the lake, just everyone just hanging out, having a good time. And they do that on the regular. I just actually talked to Evil, who was at Jay's house last weekend, and Jay had Kish over, Evil, all the crew, and just barbecuing at Jay's because he has a great pool and backyard at his house. And it's those guys are all so close. And it's I wish sometimes I lived out there to be able to hang out with them all the time because they're just awesome guys. Every time I go out that way, Lemke lets me stay at his house with his wife and his daughter, and we're just part of the family for the couple of days I'm there.
Yeah, they're pretty lucky, Greg, because we never, the snipers, I would say, and not even the snipers of today, like our old sniper group, but it was more New York guys. We definitely always had a really close group, but it was different. I'm sure Travis can attest from being on both teams. Our group was more we didn't see each other as much, but we got together, constant ball busting and on top of one another. But then again, if you mess with any one of us, we'd be the first guys to go at it with someone else and stick up for each other.
Or your own
each other. What's that?
Or your own teammates.
Yeah. But it's a tough group. But if you're in, it's a fun group, right, Travis? So
100%.
So
I wouldn't trade those years for anything.
Yeah, but we never had that where we had a rink like they have in Dumars, where we'll have Midwest Wars out there, Greg, and hanging out in the bar the whole weekend. There's all the Border Cat guys together, and they do that all the time after that men's league game. We don't have that at home. We didn't have a rink that had a bar and just the guys could be together. And so it would have been great if we would have had that. But that definitely is a coolness that those guys have that, it shows at State Wars, and especially when we had the elite division was by state. But even now with the pro division, those guys are still a team that, you know, to me, they're always that dark horse, could always win it. And now they added some young guys like a Hunter Tillotson and a Cal Kafuk, and there's always
Soper and
unlimited. Who's that?
Soper as well, right?
Soper, Glover,
Soper,
and
Brady
they
Glover.
have so many good young players in Michigan. You never know who could be the next stud on that team to help them. But it's pretty
Look
cool.
at our team. We lost in the championship game at Narch this past year to obviously Alkali, who we beat them in the round robin.
Yep.
And then we go to State Wars, and unfortunately, Hunter got hurt in either junior or juggernaut before pro started, so then he didn't play. And then Cal had his freshman year at UMass Amherst, and he had to report to school, so he wasn't there. So just missing those two guys who are like maybe like me when I was younger, like our goal scorers now, that hurt us a lot at State Wars this past year.
Oh, for sure. I remember talking to Matt about that before the tournament. He was worried because you didn't have those two young studs and those young legs.
Right.
We talked about earlier, Rob Chornomud. It's a young man's game now. You need those young players.
And just to go back on like those guys, the Border Cats guys, Greg and I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, we flew out to Detroit to do a tryout. And it just so happens that Friday night we were there, or Saturday night we were there, Lemke was having a 30th birthday party for his wife. So like all my guys are there. They rented out the rink and the bar, and everyone, all my guys were there. And it felt like this is where I should be right now. It was very weird. And Weston Arch, I remember, gave me a fresh boy while we were there. And that kid's a character.
Yeah, I have a video of that somewhere that I pulled up for Matt's interview with him on the pod.
I saw that. But no, just the guys are great. I can't say enough about them and Matt and how they've treated me once I had no place to play.
Yeah, no, definitely a great group of guys. So, Greg, I think we got one last video for Travis, and this is going to take back all the way back to 2005, I believe.
Is it the Derek Kern punch? Because I was waiting for that.
Which one?
The Derek Kern punch?
No.
Before we got here, I wasn't expecting anything, and then we're leaving with this bad boy right here, the silver medal. Very nice. It's heavy.
So there's a young Travis. We had him on our highlight video after the first year. We did a little promo video, and that's him just talking about the medal. Was pretty heavy, huh, Travis?
Yeah, it was heavy, and I have to mention my hair. It definitely had the Sergey Fedorov flow going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And,
you were a kid with that blonde hair. You had the spikes, that little Billy Goat look. You always had.
It was like more like the McDonald's look, so like golden arches in the front,
Before we got here, I wasn't expecting anything, and then we're leaving with this bad boy right here, the silver medal. Very nice. It's heavy.
Speaking of hair, I forget the years, but for a couple years going, Greg, myself, and one of the guys that we had as a scorekeeper and a overall all-around mutt, Jeff Arscott, we had like a flip going, a flip competition going.
Yep.
Remember that, Greg?
Arscott was always pretty good. He's got pretty good hair.
We all had pretty good like front flip going on, and we would kind of judge each other every single day for the 13 days that we were there. And I was just talking to him the other day, actually, and he was bringing up a State Wars Hair Hall of Fame, and how we were the 1, 2, and 3 front runners for Hall of Fame status. But he mentioned that Greg got knocked out because he decided to not consult us when he shaved his head.
Look at this head of hair quick. This is an old school Ryan Carey. I mean, I would think he'd be in the running as well. Look at that.
Yeah, but I don't think he was around those days. So
It's like Tommy Bruce's hair now, kind of. That's kind of the look right now. The pull back and long in the back.
no kidding.
This is the year I broke my finger, Trav.
Yeah,
That little thing right there kept him from playing the whole tournament, Travis. Is that
they
soft
kept
or
him from
what?
playing the entire.
No, I played a game and I couldn't I played against the other New York team. I remember in juniors, and I couldn't play. I couldn't grip my stick.
The last thing I want to mention, speaking of Jeff Arscott, he wanted me to let you guys know that he's bringing a revamped Connecticut Coasters from the old RHI days team to State Wars, Narch, and Tours this year to play in
yeah.
the
Okay.
not pro, but the top men's league.
Awesome.
So
That's what we got to thank Travis for. We got to meet some real characters, Greg, from Connecticut. Jeff Arscott. He mentioned Kevin Crowley before. His younger brother Matt. Who score kept for us for a while. Talking about Mutts. He was a great worker for us. I actually miss having Matt there.
Both of them. Arscott too.
Matt, he took time away from his NHL career to come work for us. So we thank him for that. He was the only player ever to have his girlfriend sit in the score box the entire tournament with him at a tournament. But definitely some good people that we had, and we wouldn't have known that without knowing Travis. So we thank you for introducing us to Arscott and Crowley.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome that they're getting a squad together. Be fun to
Bobby
see.
Balageron is taking the bull by the horns on that one.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we talked earlier, we're trying to get State Wars going this summer. There's still a lot of unknowns with stuff, but we're working hard on that, and hopefully we'll get things together. And, obviously hoping to see you real soon with that. But, Travis, we're going to cut you off here. And, I want to thank you for spending your day here with us today and taking the time.
Before we got here, I wasn't expecting anything.
Greg really loves this video.
This bad boy right here, the silver
Loved
medal.
it for years.
Very nice. It's
We
heavy.
should have had the version. I think
Before
Tommy
we got here,
Bruce
I
did a
wasn't expecting
reincarnation of
anything.
that, Greg.
Tommy did a couple. Yeah. Next time we'll get the video when he said everybody loves to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, not anymore. Gotten shy in my day.
All right, Travis, you stay safe out there. Great seeing you. Looking good though, man. I don't know if it's the black shirt, but you're losing weight. You look a little more cut up.
I'm losing a little bit, eating healthy. Just got some new Shimano shoes to ride the Peloton with. So I'm
Nice.
I find the Peloton.
pardon?
Trav,
Peloton here too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I hated it the first time I used it, but I'm gonna jump back into it now that I have the shoes. So
Yeah, you need the
thanks
shoes.
for having me. And,
Trav, one last question. Is that the infamous bar down hat?
no, this is post university where I actually coached the NCAA D1 women's ice hockey team.
Oh,
No
big.
biggie.
No big deal.
All right, buddy.
But I can't thank State Wars enough for all my years of tryouts and practices to help me get to where I am today.
All right. Well, hopefully we're gonna get you on the rink with us at some tryouts in the near future too next year. Because it wouldn't be the same without having you on a North Carolina trip or a Colorado trip or somewhere. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right, buddy.
Take care,
Thanks,
Trav.
man.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
Bye.
Tetley.
All right, that was our buddy Travis Bokina, Connecticut. Definitely a character, but all jokes aside, in my opinion, truly one of the best old-time goal scorers in the mid 2000s or whatever in the sport for his age group. And then moving on those first bunch of years, I'd say from 2005 to 2013 or so at State Wars, just a consistent high score. I mean, he won high score, like we said, 3 times from 05 to 13, won an MVP, always playing at the highest level. Elite division was a big part of that young gun. Young guns don't win that year without him on that elite team.
No.
He probably should have made that alkali team right off the get-go, but things happen. You have players, as happened with us, there's only so many players you could take.
Yep.
But I'm glad he hooked up with the Border Cats, great group of guys. And it's great, in the second half of his career, as you know, Greg, you're a different player than you were 15 years ago. Unfortunately, it happens to everyone, and you got to be able to adapt. And you've adapted better than anyone, but Travis has done a pretty good job adapting to what he could bring to the Border Cats.
Yeah, we always talk about teams like, the Roadrunners and up and coming teams that, are basically next in line to take home a gold. But Border Cats, they're looking really good, man. They have a good mix. They have a lot of awesome young talent, and they have a lot of good veterans. And they're going to be a team that I think is going to win within the next couple of years. They're pretty lights out, and they have awesome goaltending. And yeah, they got couple good Canadian kids, and they're good. So
Michigan's got so many great players,
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it. So, Yeah, we had Rob Chornomud on, Labrada Hockey, head coach, PAMA Labrada Golden Knights, our great buddy from California. It was great talking PAMA Pro with him. Thought he had a lot of good insights into it. Looking forward to continuing the talks about the PAMA Pro. I mean, the one that makes me feel good is when you talk to Jay Muro last week, talk to Rob Chornomud today, their feelings are they love where the game's at right now. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. They love the game, the level it's at, what we've been doing with the PAMA Pro division to just make it even that much more special and, exciting stuff for the future here. So, been another great podcast today and, definitely looking forward to getting back at it next week and, hope everybody has a happy and healthy weekend here.
Yeah, it was a great one today. Two great guests and lots of insight on the PAMA Pro division. And it's great catching up with Travis as well. Haven't spoken to him in a while.
Yeah, me either.
So yeah, it's always nice catching up, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. The State Wars Hockey Podcast, Glass Half Full Productions, signing out. Let's bring PJ Cavaya on, the voice of State Wars Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is PJ Cavaya, the voice of State Wars Hockey, and you are watching the SWH Podcast brought to you by Glass Half Full Productions. Thank you to all of our amazing sponsors, Mission Bauer, Tour, Alkali, Labrada, Rink Rat, Conix, Warrior, Monkey Sports, Yord Watches, Car Shield, Rocket Puck, Wraparound, and Top Shelf Targets. We look forward to seeing you all on the rink soon.